Chapter 3005. Ling Xiao had broken through to the Imperial Emperor realm. His primordial spirit had completely transformed into an indestructible primordial spirit. 12 Tao origins intertwined in his sea of consciousness, forming a Tao fruit of the primordial spirit that emitted 12 colors of light. The Tao fruit of the primordial spirit was like an eternal sun that hovered in the endless void, emitting eternal and eternal light. Chaos, fate, cause and effect, reincarnation, 12 Tao origins, each of which was earth-shattering and peerless. They were all origin powers that could be called forbidden powers. These 12 Tao origins were the foundation of all Taos in heaven and earth. They could evolve into all realms and billions of living beings. The 12 ancestor gods were able to sweep across the heavens and bring the god realm to an extremely glorious state because of the power of these 12 Tao origins. Now, Ling Xiao had received a gift from the 12 ancestor gods and had become the true son of God, the son of the 12 ancestor gods. Rumble. Just as Ling Xiao completed his tribulation and completely advanced to the Imperial Emperor realm, the surrounding void began to vibrate violently. A strange and ancient fluctuation spread out, and the void seemed to distort as it spread in all directions. Bright light bloomed, and auspicious vapors rose. The mysterious scene of a 12-colored lotus platform appeared in the void. Ling Xiao stood on the 12-colored lotus platform, and his body was surrounded by divine light. He had a faint smile on his face, and his entire body emitted a mysterious and invincible aura. This phenomenon was too grand. Zhan Chen, the Yunshi Saintess, and the others who were protecting Ling Xiao were all shocked. Their eyes were filled with shock and fanatical admiration. This phenomenon is clearly the aura of the birth of the legendary Son of God? Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor, Nioibo Studio Editor, Nioibo Studio. Zhan Chen said excitedly. With the arrival of the Son of God, we will definitely win this immortal demon conference. With the opening of the Hall of Gods and the arrival of the Son of God, is our God tribe really going to be revived? I seem to have seen the future of the God tribe. Everyone's body was filled with excitement. They knelt on one knee in front of Ling Xiao, and their eyes were filled with fanatical admiration as if they were worshipping their king. Ling Xiao, who was in the air, had 12 colored lights shining in his eyes. He was wise and mysterious. He gently raised his hand, and 11 rays of light shot out from his palm. They descended from the sky and merged into the bodies of Zhan Chen and the others. Rumble. Their bodies shook violently, as if flames were rising in an instant, causing the blood in their bodies to start boiling. Blazing flames rose. These were the flames of the Great Path. They fused into their bodies and entered their bloodlines. "It's so hot," someone couldn't help but shout. The flames rose to the extreme, and an incomparably mysterious scene appeared. Black shackles vaguely appeared in their bloodlines, completely sealing their bloodlines. However, under the burning of the fire of the Great Path, the black shackles in their bodies began to tremble slightly. Dazzling celestial light bloomed on them, and then cracks began to appear. "These are the shackles that bind our bloodline." Zhan Chen and the others were both surprised and overjoyed. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The people of the 6 great divine sects, as well as those who called themselves the God Clan, could only be called the descendants of the God Clan. They weren't the true God Clan, because there were bloodline shackles in their bodies that sealed the power of their bloodlines. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 amazing people who broke the bloodline shackles in their bodies and grew into top experts who could shake the entire immortal world. Those were the true God Clan. For example, Goddess Lanying and the Grandmaster Emperor. Although Zhan Chen, Yun Shi, and the others were genius disciples of the 6 great divine sects, they hadn't been able to break the bloodline shackles in their bodies. Now that Ling Xiao had ascended to the immortal Emperor realm, with the help of the Great Path origin left behind by the 12 ancestral gods, he began to help them break the bloodline shackles in their bodies, releasing their powerful potential and growing into the true God Clan. An incomparably crisp sound rang out. The shackles in Zhan Chen and the others' bloodline were all burned by the fire of the Great Path. In the end, they all collapsed with a loud bang. Zhang Chen and the others felt comfortable all over. Their eyes were filled with incomparable intoxication, and their souls felt incomparably warm. After breaking the bloodline shackles, they had finally become the true God clan. Every one of them had a smile on their faces. The bloodline in their bodies surged endlessly like a great river, blooming with dazzling light. Rumble. Yun Shi's cultivation was originally at the peak of the immortal venerable realm. Now that she had broken the bloodline shackles, her powerful accumulation and foundation allowed her cultivation to instantly break through to the immortal monarch realm. The powerful immortal monarch tribulation had descended. As for Zhang Chen and the others, most of them were originally at the first and second heavens of the immortal monarch realm. At this moment, after receiving the support of the Great Path Origin, their strength also began to soar by leaps and bounds. Dazzling divine light spread out, enveloping all of them. In the Hall of Gods, thousands of rays of divine light and thousands of auspicious colors shone. The 12-colored lotus platform was like a divine sun shining on the earth, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. The mysterious phenomenon spread out, causing the wild beasts outside the barrier to become even more frenzied. Each of them was incomparably restless, wanting to rush into the barrier. Immortal world. In the void, blazing light condensed, clouds rose, and an incomparably mysterious figure vaguely appeared. Although the figure's face was very blurry, he looked very young. His feet stepped on the heaven and earth, and above his head was a galaxy. 3,000 worlds surrounded him, exuding an invincible aura. Under his feet, there was a lotus platform like the sun, emitting 12 colors of light, eternal and immortal. This phenomenon was incomparably grand, and almost instantly shocked everyone in the immortal world. What kind of phenomenon is this? Could it be that someone has proven their Tao and become an emperor? Someone's body trembled, and he said with incomparable shock, "It shouldn't be. The phenomenon of proving one's Tao and becoming an emperor is even grander than this. If someone becomes an emperor, there will be a phenomenon in all the worlds, and the great Tao will celebrate. It looks like the phenomenon of breaking through to the immortal monarch realm." The phenomenon of breaking through to the immortal monarch realm? How is that possible? It's already very good for ordinary people to be able to form a phenomenon of 10,000 miles when they break through to the immortal monarch realm. Even the geniuses among them can only form a phenomenon of 1,000,000 miles. I'm afraid the entire immortal world can see such a phenomenon. Could it be that a supreme treasure has appeared? It doesn't look like it. I think it's more like some kind of heaven-defying monster has taken an important step forward. This kind of phenomenon is amazing. Another peerless monster has appeared in the immortal world. It looks like our immortal world is going to prosper. I wonder who that young man is. Everyone in the immortal world was discussing animatedly, guessing the identity of the figure in the void. Chapter 3006. Ancestral Mountain. Madame Fuyao and the supreme elders of the various divine sects also saw the strange phenomenon in the sky. Could this strange phenomenon be because of the Hall of Gods? Someone asked doubtfully. The Son of God has descended. Cheng Kaitai's body shook as if he had thought of something. His eyes were filled with excitement as he took a deep breath. What? The Son of God? A glint flashed across everyone's eyes. Could it be that one of the genius disciples of the 6 divine sects has become the Son of God? That's very likely. Looks like the God clan is on the rise. The descent of the Son of God will lead the 6 divine sects and millions of people of the God clan. I think Zhang Chen from the God of War realm may become the Son of God. Saint Wu Hen from your sect is not bad either. Yunshi Saintess is also a genius. Many supreme elders were incomparably excited. They were originally very nervous, not knowing what the genius disciples of the 6 divine sects would encounter after entering the Hall of Gods. However, the strange phenomenon in the sky caused them to become extremely excited. Madame Fuyao looked at the figure in the sky. Her eyes sparkled as a figure appeared in her mind. She then whispered to herself in an almost undetectable voice, "Is it him?" In the endless void. A young man with rosy lips and white teeth walked on the chaos. His clothes were whiter than snow, and his temperament was otherworldly. He had a divine aura. He looked calm and composed, and his eyes were incomparably deep, like the stars in the sky. At this moment, the strange phenomenon in the immortal realm was transmitted to the chaotic void, and he noticed it. "This is Lei Ling?" The young man's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He was Qin Yun, the peerless immortal lord under the immortal emperor. He had come here for Lei Ling. However, when he saw the strange phenomenon in the void, he was still a little surprised. "It looks like Lei Ling has received the fortune of the ancestor god and become the son of God. No wonder His Majesty sent me here." Qin Yun muttered to himself. "Lei Ling is indeed extraordinary. Although the son of God isn't much, he's still a problem. It's better to leave him in front of your Majesty. It's more reassuring." Qin Yun's eyes flashed. Stepping on the chaos, he sped up and headed for Sacred Ancestor Mountain. In the Hall of Gods, Ling Xiao had no idea that the heaven and earth phenomenon formed by his breakthrough to the Imperial Emperor realm had actually appeared in the sky above the immortal world, causing a huge uproar. Ling Xiao's attention was completely focused on the god race mark. After Ling Xiao obtained the fortune of the 12 ancestral gods, he finally gained complete control of the god clan mark. As it turned out, the divine clan seal was one of the 2 supreme treasures of the divine clan. The other was the cauldron of fortune. The god clan seal was the highest authority of the god clan. Whoever wielded the god clan seal was the master of the god clan. The god clan mark contained the fortune of the god clan. It could stimulate the bloodline of the god clan and unleash the greatest potential. The reason why Zhan Qin, Yun Shi, and the others were able to break through their bloodline shackles was not only because of the great Tao origins of the 12 ancestral gods, but also because of the god clan mark. This discovery made Ling Xiao extremely excited. If the descendants of the god clan from the 6 major divine sects could all break through their bloodline shackles, they would definitely be able to unleash great potential. After all, the god clan was the most ancient race. They had once dominated the ancient times. Even the immortal clan was only a servant of the god clan. As Ling Xiao interacted with them, he realized that the immortal clan's strength was so strong that it made people despair. Perhaps only the god clan could contend against the immortal clan. However, the power of the god clan mark had yet to be fully activated. If he wanted to activate the power of the god clan mark, he still needed to go to another place. The immortal demon cave. Now, only Zhan Qin and the others' bloodline shackles have been broken. If I want to break the bloodline shackles of all the descendants of the god clan, I have to completely awaken the god clan mark. Moreover, I need the complete cauldron of fortune. Ling Xiao thought to himself. When the god clan mark and the cauldron of fortune appeared at the same time, they could activate the bloodline shackles of all the descendants of the god clan. The heavenly sword diagram left behind by the Grandmaster Emperor is in the immortal demon cave. The secret of the god clan mark is also in the immortal demon cave. What kind of place is this immortal demon cave? Ling Xiao was puzzled. He felt that the immortal demon cave was becoming more and more mysterious. The immortal demon cave was not as simple as it seemed. Rumble. Yun Shi's immortal Lord Tribulation was extremely strong. Although it was not as strong as Ling Xiao's immortal Lord Tribulation, it was still very terrifying. In the end, she passed the immortal Lord Tribulation without any mishap and became a first heaven immortal Lord Realm expert. As for Zhan Chen's cultivation, he had reached the 3rd heaven immortal Lord Realm. The other 9 people's cultivation were all at the peak of the 2nd heaven immortal Lord Realm. Their cultivations had all improved by different degrees, and their admiration for Ling Xiao had also become more and more fervent. They had completely become Ling Xiao's loyal followers. This Hall of Gods, perhaps we can call it the Ancestral God Realm. This is also the final foundation of the God Clan. It can accommodate billions of God Clan members. Remember this, I give you the authority to enter the Ancestral God Realm. If the God Clan is in trouble in the future, bring them into the Ancestral God Realm. Do you understand? Ling Xiao's eyes moved and fell on Zhan Qin and the others. He waved his hand, and 11 runes flew out from the God Clan seal. All of them landed on their palms, and then they disappeared. Authority to enter the ancestral God realm? Thank you, God's child. Zhan Chen and the others' eyes lit up, then they bowed respectfully. Although they had not fully explored the ancestral God realm, they knew that it was vast and boundless. It was also incomparably ancient and contained many treasures. Even if the ancestral God realm was smaller than the immortal realm, it was not that much smaller. Most importantly, the ancestral God realm was hidden in the chaos. No one could discover its existence at all. To the God Clan, this was the perfect place to reproduce. And all of this was brought to them by God's child. God's child, you killed His Highness great-grandson. I'm afraid the eternal immortal dynasty will not let this matter rest. Why don't you cultivate in the ancestral God realm, then we will go out and move the God Clan members into the ancestral God realm. We will wait for God's child to become stronger and temporarily avoid the immortal race's wrath. What do you think? Zhan Chen cupped his hands at Ling Xiao. The eternal immortal dynasty? Even if I don't kill His Highness great-grandson, will they let me go? Also, since when did the God Clan need to avoid the immortal race? The immortal race is just a servant of the God Clan. I want to go out, and I will kill all the immortal race geniuses in the immortal demon gathering. I will let the immortal race know that the master is still the master. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, his voice loud and clear. Zhan Chen and the others trembled as their blood boiled with excitement. Chapter 3007. Ling Xiao left the ancestral God Palace. As for Zhan Chen and the rest, they had all become Ling Xiao's loyal followers. This was especially so for the Cloud Stream Saintess. Her gaze towards Ling Xiao was filled with admiration and joy. Her Lei Lang had become the Son of God, the hope of the entire God Clan. The birth of the Son of God filled them with confidence for the future of the God Clan. Their blood boiled, and they wanted nothing more than to die for the Son of God. Ling Xiao had never imagined that he would become the gods chosen by the Heavenspan Emperor Lord after entering the Hall of Gods. Speaking of which, Ling Xiao was able to become the Son of God because of the Grandmaster Emperor. The Chaos God Bone left behind by the Grandmaster Emperor caused Ling Xiao's immortal root to collapse and fuse with the God Bone, completely becoming a God Clan member. This was especially true for the 12 Great Tao origins. This was the fortune left behind by the 12 ancestral gods. It saved Ling Xiao 10,000 years of cultivation and allowed him to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm. Other than that, there was also the whereabouts of the Heavenly Sword Diagram, the secret of the God Clan mark, and the Cauldron of Fortune. The Hall of God was the greatest fortune that Ling Xiao had received since coming to the immortal realm. Buzz. Ling Xiao, Zhan Chen, Yun Shi, and the others flashed and appeared in the sky above Ancestral Mountain. They're out. Who became the Son of God? The arrival of the Son of God is a great blessing for the God Clan. It seems that we were right to open the Hall of God this time. Seeing that someone had appeared, Cheng Kai-tai and the other grand elders of the 6 major sects began to get excited. Their eyes shone brightly as they looked at Ling Xiao and the others. It really is him. Madame Fu Yao's beautiful eyes flashed as her gaze fell on Ling Xiao. She keenly sensed that the immortal root in Ling Xiao's body had disappeared, and an extremely mysterious and powerful God Bone had appeared in his chest. As for Zhan Chen, Yun Shi, and the others, they stood behind Ling Xiao like stars surrounding the moon. Their eyes were filled with fanatical worship. It went without saying. Ling Xiao was the Son of God. He's the Son of God? Cheng Kai-tai and the other 4 supreme elders also noticed this, and their eyes revealed a trace of incomparable surprise. They had guessed that many people would become the Son of God, such as Zhan Chen and Yun Shi, but they had never thought that Lei Ling would become the Son of God. After all, Lei Ling was just an immortal. They had already had some complaints about Fu Yao allowing Lei Ling to enter the Hall of Gods. However, the scene in front of them caused them to fall completely silent. Their expressions were a little complicated. For a moment, they did not know how to face Lei Ling. The birth of the Son of God is truly a joyous occasion. Looks like I'm not late. At this moment, A faint and ethereal voice rang out in the void. The void trembled slightly, and chaotic mist filled the air. Instantly, a young Taoist with rosy lips and white teeth appeared in front of everyone. His temperament was otherworldly, and his eyes were bright and deep. A faint smile hung on the corner of his lips. His gaze swept across the crowd, containing the power to see through people's hearts. In the end, his gaze landed on Ling Xiao, the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Madame Fu Yao's entire body shook, and her eyes revealed a trace of incomparable fear and shock. This young Taoist's background was incomparably shocking. The imperial advisor of the eternal immortal dynasty, Taoist Qin Yun. No one knew how long Taoist Qin Yun had lived, but it was said that he was a figure of the same generation as the immortal emperor. His talent was astounding, and his strength was unfathomable. Moreover, he always looked like a young man. Madame Fu Yao had never imagined that the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty would come here. Madame Fu Yao, long time no see. Today, I heard that the Son of God of the Divine Tribe has descended. I've specially come here to invite the Son of God to the eternal immortal dynasty as a guest. Please grant my wish, Qin Yun said to Madame Fu Yao with a smile. Invite the Son of God to the eternal immortal dynasty? No need. The Son of God has important matters to attend to. If he has time in the future, he will naturally visit the immortal emperor. Madame Fu Yao's eyes flashed, and she flatly rejected the invitation. She was extremely wary. The imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty had come personally to invite the Son of God to the eternal immortal dynasty. Could this be an order from the mysterious immortal emperor? Imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, the six divine sects and the eternal immortal dynasty have always minded our own business. Is the eternal immortal dynasty trying to break this balance? Qing Kaitai frowned and said. The people of the six divine sects were extremely wary. They had already understood the meaning behind the imperial advisor's words. The imperial advisor had come here to capture the Son of God and bring him back to the eternal immortal dynasty. How could this be? The Son of God was the hope of the divine tribe. No matter what, they could not hand him over to the Royal Azure Dynasty. Visit? That sounds nice. Imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, if you want to capture the Son of God, just say so. No matter what, the Son of God will not go to the eternal immortal dynasty. Zhan Feng snorted coldly. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. The imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty was probably here for the Crown Prince? After all, Ling Xiao had killed the Crown Prince in the Hall of Gods. The Crown Prince's status in the eternal immortal dynasty was extraordinary. Who knew if he had incurred the wrath of the immortal emperor? In Ling Zhao's opinion, the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty was here to denounce him. Furthermore, Ling Xiao felt a trace of energy from the imperial advisor of the Kunwu Mountain from the imperial advisor. A peerless imperial advisor? At the thought of this, Ling Zhao's eyes flashed brightly. A strong fighting spirit surged around him. I'm afraid everyone has misunderstood me. I am sincerely inviting the Son of God to the eternal immortal dynasty. I'm afraid the Son of God will have to come with me today. The imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty smiled and walked towards the crowd. Rumble. A vast and unparalleled aura spread out. It made the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty exuded an invincible aura that pressed down on the crowd. Madame Fu Yao and the supreme elders of the five divine sects could not help but change their expressions when they saw this aura. The imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty was too domineering. His words sounded polite, but in reality, he was telling Madame Fu Yao and the others that if they did not allow the Son of God to come with him to the eternal immortal dynasty, he would start a massacre. No one can take the Son of God away. Imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, are you trying to make an enemy of the six divine sects? Protect the Son of God. Everyone shouted coldly. Their eyes were filled with anger and coldness as they stared at the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. It was as if they were facing a formidable enemy. With Madame Fu Yao and Cheng Kaitai in the lead, The supreme elders of the six divine sects unleashed a powerful aura. It was as if they were going to break through the shackles of heaven and earth. Zhan Qin, Yun Shi, and the others were on high alert. They stood in front of Ling Xiao and stared at the imperial advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Chapter 3008. I really don't want to fight with all of you. Why do you have to force me? Qin Yun said with a sigh. His eyes were extremely calm. Boom. He took a step forward and it was as if thunder had exploded. The aura around him rose and became extremely terrifying in an instant. Yin and Yang Qi gathered around him, causing the surrounding sky to tremble. It shot up into the sky and formed a yin-yang tai chi diagram in the sky. The vast aura came crashing down on Madame Fuyao and the others. The yin-yang tai chi diagram also came crashing down from the sky like an ancient sacred mountain. Madame Fuyao and the others trembled as their blood boiled. Their eyes were extremely solemn as they took a few steps back. Boom, boom, boom. The smile on Qin Yun's face did not change as he took a few steps forward. Every step he took was like stepping on a node of heaven and earth. The yin-yang tai chi diagram became even more dazzling and condensed, emitting an extremely powerful pressure. Madame Fuyao and the others were unable to resist Qin Yun's aura and their expressions became even more solemn. Is this the power of a peerless immortal master? Madame Fuyao's heart trembled as her eyes were filled with disbelief. She seemed to see the shadow of sect leader Gu Tongtian in Qin Yun. However, Qin Yun's aura was even stronger and more terrifying, making it difficult for them to resist. Lei Ling, run! Madame Fuyao gritted her teeth and shouted. Then she charged towards Qin Yun. Endless sword light gathered around her and finally turned into a shocking sword that slashed down on Qin Yun. She still chose to attack despite the strong pressure. Kill! Chen Kaitai and the rest of the supreme elders uttered a roar too. Their eyes were filled with determination as they made their moves right after Qin Nan. Rumble! 6 dazzling divine lights swept across the void and charged towards Qin Yun at the same time. Among the 6 of them, even the weakest had reached the 5th heaven of the monarch realm. The strongest, Madame Fuyao, was already a 7th heaven of the monarch realm. Even so, they still had no chance of winning against the imperial advisor of Qin Yun. They only hoped to delay Qin Yun and create a chance for Ling Xiao to escape. Boom! Qin Yun's expression was incomparably indifferent. Facing Madame Fuyao and the others, he merely suppressed them with a simple palm. The unparalleled palm print seemed to be able to destroy everything. The yin-yang taiji diagram also came crashing down from the sky. In an instant, the sky and earth were turned upside down, and yin and yang rotated. Madame Fuyao and the others seemed to have appeared in a world of yin and yang, surrounded by yin and yang qi that had transformed into a powerful emperor aura origin. Rumble! The 6 of them trembled all over, as if they had suffered an unimaginable heavy injury in an instant, and were sent flying through the air. Puff! They coughed up blood, and their faces were extremely pale. Their eyes were filled with shock. Among the 6 major divine sects, they were also the powerhouses who were responsible for suppressing the fate of their divine sections. But now, they couldn't even withstand a single blow from the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. This made them feel a strong sense of defeat. The combat prowess of the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty was too terrifying. Boom! Qin Yun didn't even look at them as he walked towards Ling Xiao. Zhan Qin, Yun Shi, and the others were originally standing in front of Ling Xiao, but their strength was far inferior to Madame Fuyao and the others. Naturally, they couldn't withstand the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. As if they had been struck by lightning, they trembled all over and were sent flying. As if all obstacles had been cleared, the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty walked towards Ling Xiao. Rumble! A vast force came crashing down from the sky, as if trying to force Ling Xiao to kneel down. Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent as he stared at the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, as if he was not affected by the force at all. The imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty might be difficult for others to resist, but it was nothing to Ling Xiao. As expected of the Son of God, you are indeed extraordinary. His Majesty would like to invite the Son of God to the eternal celestial dynasty. Please come with me. The imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty smiled gently. Go to the eternal celestial dynasty? I'm sorry, but I have no interest in meeting the celestial emperor now. After the deity-demon conference, if there is a chance, maybe I can meet the celestial emperor. Ling Xiao said indifferently, without a trace of fear. Even though the imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty's strength was unfathomable, Ling Xiao felt threatened. When to meet the celestial emperor is not up to you, nor is it up to me. Since the celestial emperor wants to meet you, you must go to the eternal celestial dynasty. The imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty smiled. What if I don't want to? I said it's not up to you. Son of God, if you don't want to, then I can only force you to go to the eternal celestial dynasty. The imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty said. His voice was incomparably calm, and the corner of his mouth had been curled up in a faint smile, showing his immense confidence. It was the kind of confidence that everything was under his control. He believed that Ling Xiao would not be able to escape from his control. You want to fight? If that's the case, then let me have a taste of the imperial tutor's skills. Ling Xiao said faintly. His eyes flashed and an extremely strong fighting spirit surged in them. He was not far away from the imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty. Ling Xiao could clearly feel the strong pressure from the imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty. However, that pressure made Ling Xiao extremely excited, and the blood in his body seemed to be boiling. He desperately wanted to have a great battle. After breaking through to the imperial emperor realm, Ling Xiao's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Even though he was facing the peerless immortal emperor in front of him, Ling Xiao did not show the slightest fear. Clang! The sound of a sword rang through the void, and the immortal slaughtering sword appeared in Ling Xiao's palm. It emitted a blazing light and a murderous aura, causing the surrounding void to tremble slightly. As if it could feel the murderous intent in Ling Xiao's body, the immortal slaughtering sword became extremely excited. The immortal slaughtering sword? It's a pity that your cultivation is too weak, and it's not something a supreme emperor weapon can make up for. Son of God, since you killed His Highness, use this sword to atone for your sins. The imperial tutor of the royal Azure dynasty said with a faint smile. Boom! He made his move. It was a light palm, like a cloud, slow and ethereal. It flew towards Ling Xiao, as if it did not contain any energy fluctuations. However, when this palm exploded, Ling Xiao felt as if there was a vast world rising up, and in an instant, it enveloped his entire body. Behind the light palm, there were waves as vast as the sea. It was an immortal palm, and it was an unparalleled destructive force. Ling Xiao did not hesitate at all. The immortal slaughtering sword in his hand emitted a peerless sword light, and in an instant, it flew across the sky, aiming for the imperial tutor's forehead. Chapter 3009. Using the 12 Great Tao Origins to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm, Ling Xiao's strength skyrocketed. At this moment, he wielded the immortal slaughtering sword and used the Great Slaughtering Immortal technique. He felt as if he had merged with the legendary Great Slaughtering Immortal Lord and unleashed a shocking sword attack. Boom! Sword chi swept across the void as the immortal slaughtering sword was completely awakened. The sword hummed and the Emperor's aura rose. It was like a vast sword territory that enveloped the Imperial Advisor. No one could describe the shock of that sword attack. It was like a white light that rose up and split the heavens and earth in an instant. It was magnificent and boundless. The palm print and the sword light collided. In an instant, large swaths of the void were annihilated. Endless divine light swept out in all directions like a tidal wave. Ling Xiao and the Imperial Advisor were both sent flying at the same time. As expected of a peerless immortal lord. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly as an extremely powerful battle intent surged out. Even though his blood was boiling and his arms were numb, he was about to lose consciousness. The Great Slaughtering Immortal technique, combined with the immortal slaughtering sword, unleashed a peerless sword attack that forced the imperial advisor to retreat. The Royal Azure Dynasty Grand Tutor's face also revealed a trace of surprise. After all, the gap between him and Ling Xiao was too big. However, he felt a sense of threat from Ling Xiao. Especially the immortal slaughtering sword, it seemed to have completely awakened. The sharp sword qi seemed to be able to destroy everything. Lei Ling, you are indeed the son of God. It seems that you have gained a lot in the Hall of Gods. Since that is the case, you have to follow me to the eternal immortal dynasty. The imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty said faintly as his gaze turned sharp. He was getting serious. Although he knew that Ling Xiao was the son of God, the gap between them was too big. Hence, he did not pay much attention to it. However, after this attack, he realized that Ling Xiao was extraordinary. The eternal immortal dynasty is as domineering as ever. If you want me to go to the eternal immortal dynasty, you have to defeat me first. Ling Xiao sneered as his battle intent rose. The blood in his body seemed to be boiling. The chaotic divine bone in front of his chest shone with chaotic light, causing him to exude an immortal and indestructible aura. The immortal slaughtering sword spewed out sharp light as it pointed at the imperial advisor of the Imperial Azure Dynasty. An incomparably dangerous aura rose around Ling Xiao and the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. A huge battle was about to break out. Even the supreme elders of the six divine sects were surprised and delighted when they felt the powerful aura coming from Ling Xiao's body. This son of God had brought them a great surprise. He had just broken through to the Imperial Emperor realm and was already able to face the Imperial Advisor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Once he fully matured, how strong would he be? Everyone, even if we die, we must protect the safety of God's child. Cheng Kaitai gritted his teeth and said. His eyes revealed a trace of determination. Terrifying auras rose from their bodies, and mysterious flames spread out. They were actually planning to burn their origin and fight to the death in order to save the Son of God. In their eyes, the life of the Son of God was thousands of times more valuable than theirs. The more terrifying the potential Ling Xiao displayed, the more resolute they became. Elders, don't be anxious. Perhaps we don't have to risk our lives. Madame Fuyao's eyes flashed as she spoke with a complicated expression. At this moment, the surrounding void began to tremble. Within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, all the mountains, rocks, and plants were trembling. It was as if there was an incomparably sharp sword essence rising. It was domineering, mysterious, and terrifying to the extreme. Even Ling Xiao and the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, who were facing each other, could not help but have a slight change in expression. Royal Azure Dynasty, with your status, aren't you bullying the son of God of the divine clan? Why don't you let me play with you? A faint but deep voice rang out in the void. Devour! The sword qi that filled the sky gathered together, and the blazing divine light rose and surged. Finally, it turned into a middle-aged man in green robes. He was tall, and his face looked as if it was carved by a knife. The sharp lines on his face made him look sharp, domineering, and mysterious. His eyes were as calm as water, but there was a kind of power that could see through everything. The occasional flash of light was as sharp as the sword qi. He stood there as if he was one with the heavens and earth. However, when the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty saw him, his expression changed instantly. The prime of Tongdan, Gu Tongdan? The imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty's expression was slightly solemn. All his attention was instantly focused on the middle-aged man in green robes. It was as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Gu Tongtian? Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Was this the hierarch of ancient god cult, the elusive hierarch of ancient Tongtian who had always been in closed-door training? For some reason, Ling Xiao suddenly felt a little guilty. It's the prime of Tongtian? Madam, the prime of Tongtian has come out of seclusion? It seems like we are safe. The prime of Tongtian must have been alerted by the strange phenomenon of the Son of God's birth. I wonder what realm the prime of Tongtian is in now. Legend has it that before he went into seclusion, he was already a peerless immortal lord. Cheng Kai-tai and the rest were ecstatic, as if they had been rescued from a hopeless situation. They were extremely excited. Imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty, why don't you give me face and let the son of God of the divine clan go? Gu Tongtian looked at the imperial tutor calmly and said, Gu Tongan, it's not like you to be so polite. However, do you think it's possible for me to let him go with just a few words? The imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty sneered. Looking at Gu Tongtian in front of him, his heart was filled with dread. Speaking of which, the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty had many dealings with Gu Tongtian. They had even fought a few times. The Gu Tongtian he had seen before was domineering and fierce, like an unsheathed divine sword or an erupting volcano. He was extremely violent. However, the Gu Tongtian now was like a divine sword sheathed in its scabbard. He had restrained his sharpness and had become refined, without that wild temperament. However, the more he behaved like this, the more the imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty feared Gu Tongtian. Oh, then what do you want, imperial tutor? Gu Tongtian said calmly. Let's have a fight. In the battle 10,000 years ago, you won by half a move. Today, I want to test the heavy sword under my feet again. If you win, you can take the Son of God away. If you lose, the Son of God will have to come with me. The imperial tutor of the Royal Azure Dynasty said slowly. His eyes were sharp, and he did not hide his strong fighting spirit. After Gu Tongtian appeared, he knew that he would not be able to bring Ling Xiao back to the eternal immortal dynasty. Gu Tongtian's strength was something that even the immortal emperor could not stop praising. 10,000 years ago, before Gu Tongtian went into seclusion, his cultivation had already reached the level of a peerless immortal lord. He had even killed a 9th-level immortal lord. The name of the heavy sword resounded throughout the immortal realm. Chapter 30:10. The imperial tutor had fought with Gu Tongtian a few times before. Although they were evenly matched, the imperial tutor knew that he was no match for Gu Tongtian. Now that he met Gu Tongtian again, he realized that he could not see through him. Do you want to fight me? Sure. But now, I don't know how to use a sword anymore. Since Lord Imperial Tutor is interested, I'll play with you for a bit. Gu Tongtian smiled faintly. The Imperial Tutor's eyes narrowed. You don't know how to use a sword anymore? He understood what Gu Tongtian meant. 10,000 years ago, Gu Tongtian's swordsmanship was godly and domineering. But now, Gu Tongtian had reached a realm where he could not rely on anything. This Gu Tongtian was even more terrifying. But the Imperial Tutor's fighting spirit was getting stronger and stronger. He was not afraid at all. At their level of cultivation, there was only one crucial step left. But this step was like the difference between heaven and earth. Countless people could not see the road ahead. With the Imperial Tutor's arrogance, there was almost no one in the world who could catch his eye. But Gu Tongtian was different. If he fought with Gu Tongtian, he might be able to understand the road ahead. It was the same for Gu Tongtian. Let's go. Let's fight. The Imperial Tutor took a deep look at Gu Tongtian and took a step forward. The void trembled and he disappeared from the sky above Sacred Ancestor Mountain. Gu Tongtian smiled faintly. His gaze swept across the crowd and paused on Ling Xiao for a moment. He nodded at Ling Xiao and then took a step forward. His figure also disappeared in an instant. Ling Xiao glanced at Madame Fuyao and realized that she was looking at him. His heart skipped a beat and he smiled bitterly. He was in big trouble now. Gu Tongtian's cultivation was so terrifying. When he first arrived at Sacred Ancestor Mountain, although most of his aura was on the Imperial Tutor, just the aftermath alone was enough to make Ling Xiao feel that it was extraordinary. This ancient Tongtian sect leader was clearly a peerless, ruthless person. But Ling Xiao just had to sleep with someone else's daughter, and even slept with someone else's Dao companion. Would Gu Tongtian forgive Ling Xiao if he knew? Thinking of this, Ling Xiao's eyes turned and he even planned to escape. At this moment, Madame Fuyao walked towards Ling Xiao. Greetings, madam. Ling Xiao cupped his hands and bowed to Madame Fuyao. His expression was a little awkward, not knowing what to say. But in the next moment, Madame Fuyao's words made Ling Xiao's hair stand on end. You are not the Lei Ling of the past. Madame Fu Yao transmitted her voice to Ling Xiao in a very certain tone. Madam, what do you mean? I am indeed no longer the Lei Ling of the past. The immortal root in my body has collapsed and I have fused with the god bone. I am now a member of the god race. Although Ling Xiao's heart was shaken, he didn't show it on his face. You know what I mean. However, I have no ill intentions. Regardless of whether Lei Ling died in your hands or what kind of identity you have, I'm not interested. The only thing that interests me is that you've become the son of God. Madame Fu Yao transmitted her voice to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was silent for a moment. He was somewhat unsure of Madame Fu Yao's intentions, but he still calmly replied, Madam, I was able to become the son of God because you allowed me to enter the Hall of Gods. Allowing you to enter the Hall of Gods was also my intention. If it was the Lei Ling of the past, he would never have been able to become the Son of God. Therefore, you are not Lei Ling. I just hope that you can promise me one thing. Madame Fu Yao said slowly. What is it? When you have the ability, kill Gu Tongpan. Madame Fu Yao's words made Ling Xiao's heart tremble. He had originally thought that Madame Fu Yao would threaten him or make him do something. He had never thought that Madame Fu Yao would actually want him to kill Gu Tongtian. Who was Gu Tongtian? The leader of the old god cult, a peerless immortal monarch from 10,000 years ago. Now, he was probably only a step away from becoming an emperor. Most importantly, Gu Tongtian was Madame Fu Yao's husband. Ling Xiao could hear the undisguised hatred and murderous intent in Madame Fu Yao's words. She really wanted Gu Tongtian to die. Madam, aren't you making things too difficult for me? I have just broken through to the immortal monarch realm. The gap between me and the leader is too great. Even if I break through to the 9th level of the immortal monarch realm, it will still be very difficult for me to kill him. Most importantly, why do you want me to kill him? Ling Xiao smiled wryly. You don't need to know why I want you to kill Gu Tongtian. But you must promise me, or you will not be able to move an inch in the world of immortals. Madame Fu Yao said faintly. Madam, are you threatening me? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. It's not a threat. Consider it a collaboration. Just you wait. Don't think that just because Gu Tongtian saved you today, he will kill you even if you don't kill him. Madame Fu Yao sneered. Gu Tongtian wants to kill me? What do you mean? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. You will find out soon enough. Madame Fu Yao glanced at Ling Xiao and smiled faintly. Ling Xiao didn't like Madame Fu Yao's way of saying things halfway, but there was nothing he could do about it. What he didn't understand was how he had been exposed. After all, he had merged with Lei Ling's body, primordial spirit, and immortal root. He was no different from Lei Ling. How did Madame Fu Yao find out? Was it because he hadn't been intimate with Madame Fu Yao? Ling Xiao cursed in his heart. Women were indeed not to be trifled with. The mess that Lei Ling had left behind had all fallen on his head. Madame Fu Yao didn't say much, because the grand elders of the other 5 divine sects, as well as Zhan Qin and Yun Shi, had surrounded him. They protected Ling Xiao in the center, their expressions extremely vigilant, but also full of anticipation. It wasn't that they didn't want to leave, but there were figures looming in the void all around, and there was also a powerful formation shrouding them. It was a formation left behind by the imperial tutor. If they left rashly, they would fall into the imperial tutor's trap, so the best way was to wait here for sect leader Tongtian's return. They were full of confidence in sect leader Tongtian. After all, his strength was deeply ingrained in their hearts, and he was known as the strongest person in the 6 divine sections. Even in the entire world of immortals, there were only a few people who could compare to sect leader Tongtian. Sect leader Tongtian didn't let them down, and soon he returned. Sect leader Tongtian, how was the result? Cheng Kaitai's eyes lit up, and he couldn't wait to ask. He was defeated. Sect leader Tongtian smiled faintly. Just these 3 words instantly put everyone's heart at ease, and their eyes were filled with incomparable excitement. As expected of sect leader Tongtian. However, sect leader Tongtian's next sentence shocked them again. The immortal demon cave has already shown signs of opening, so the immortal demon conference is about to begin. We have to rush to the immortal demon cave now. The success or failure of this immortal demon conference will all depend on the god's child. Gu Tongtian said slowly, and finally his gaze fell on Ling Xiao, with a hint of scrutiny, as if he wanted to see through Ling Xiao. Chapter 30:11. Under Gu Tongtian's gaze, Ling Xiao felt an inexplicable pressure. To be more precise, he felt a little guilty. Gu Tongtian's strength was beyond Ling Xiao's expectations. 10,000 years ago, sect leader Tongtian was already a peerless immortal monarch. Now, his strength was even more unfathomable. Even if he had not proven his Tao and become an emperor, he was not far from it. Even if such a person had been in seclusion all this time, how could he not know what had happened in the old god cult? Back then, Lei Ling was only an immortal king, but he was audacious enough to seduce Gu Tongtian's daughter and wife at the same time. Now that Ling Xiao thought about it, he doubted how Lei Ling had survived back then. "You are Lei Ling?" Gu Tongtian looked at Ling Xiao and asked. "That's right. I am Lei Ling. Greetings, sect leader Tongtian." Ling Xiao smiled faintly, his expression as usual. "That's right. To be able to become the son of God is your fortune, and also the fortune of the Shen clan. This time, you will be the leader of the Shen clan in the immortal demon cave." Gu Tongtian nodded and said. His face was dignified and his eyes were deep. His aura was powerful and terrifying, unfathomable. Ling Xiao did not find anything strange about him. "Good." Ling Xiao nodded and said, "Sect leader, you are finally out of seclusion. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have died in the hands of Qin Yun." Madame Fuyao flew towards Gu Tongtian, her face full of surprise. She gently nestled in Gu Tongtian's arms, and her voice was a little coquettish. "Bitch!" Yunshi Saintus was also very excited and flew towards Gu Tongtian, but she did not expect Madame Fuyao to beat her to it. She could not help but curse. "Thank you for your hard work, madam. But now, madam can relax a little. Although your husband did not break through in seclusion this time, I have found the path ahead. I should not be far from that step." Gu Tongtian's expression relaxed, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He gently patted Madame Fuyao's shoulder. "That step." Madame Fuyao's body trembled, and her eyes immediately revealed a look of incomparable surprise. She naturally knew what the step Gu Tongtian was talking about was. It was the pinnacle of the great Tao that countless people were pursuing, the supreme great emperor realm. If the god race could produce a great emperor, would they be bullied to this extent by the immortal race? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. Had Tongtian already touched the great emperor realm? This step had trapped countless geniuses since ancient times. Even the emperor of Kunwu Mountain and Jiang Yuyang did not dare to say that they had touched the great emperor realm. Gu Tongtian was indeed extraordinary. After chatting for a while, they left Ancestral Mountain. The 6 divine sects agreed to meet at the immortal demon grotto. No one had expected the immortal devil gathering to start so early. They had thought that it would take some time. However, since the immortal demon grotto was acting strangely, they had to go back and make preparations. Ling Xiao had become the son of God. In name, he was the leader of the 6 divine sects. The genius disciples of the 6 divine sects had all submitted to Ling Xiao. However, there was a lot of filth within the 6 divine sects. Although they acknowledged Ling Xiao's identity as the son of God, it would not be easy for him to control the 6 divine sects. No matter where one went, strength was always the most important. However, Ling Xiao did not intend to control the 6 major religions now. Just the God clan mark was not enough. Once he obtained the Cauldron of Fortune, he would naturally become the true master of the God clan with the addition of 2 great treasures. However, Ling Xiao was still extremely wary of Gu Tongtian. Gu Tongtian seemed to know nothing about the matter between Ling Xiao, Yunshi, and Fuyao. He did not show any abnormalities. However, Ling Xiao still felt that Gu Tongtian was a little unreal, as if there was a layer of fog between them. After returning to the old god sect, Gu Tongtian took out an item that caused Ling Xiao, Fuyao, and Yunshi's expressions to change. It was Zhougan's head. Zhougan's eyes were wide open, as if he could not believe that he would die at Gu Tongtian's hands. Lei Ling, Zhougan was my disciple, but he colluded with the immortals and framed you for being disrespectful to Yunxi and Fuyao. He let me down. Therefore, I killed him to clear your name. Gu Tongtian looked straight at Ling Xiao and said indifferently, "Boom." It was as if something had exploded in Ling Xiao's head. Although Gu Tongtian spoke very vaguely, Ling Xiao could still tell that Zhougan had discovered the relationship between Ling Xiao, Yunxi, and Fuyao, and had told Gu Tongtian about it. However, Gu Tongtian's choice was beyond Ling Xiao's expectations. Gu Tongtian was not angry and did not immediately seek confirmation from Ling Xiao and Fuyao. Instead, he chose to kill his own personal disciple. Ling Xiao could not help but feel a chill in his heart. This ancient Tongtian sect master was really vicious and merciless. Although thoughts were running through his mind, Ling Xiao did not show it on his face. He pretended to be surprised and said, "Sect master, I don't think I have offended Brother Zhougan. Why would he slander me? Could it be because I snatched his spot to enter the Hall of Gods?" Fuyao also said with a calm expression, "Sect master, you killed him well. Zhougan is your personal disciple. Just because I did not let him enter the Hall of Gods, he bore a grudge against me and Lei Ling. He even wanted to drive a wedge between us. He is simply heartless and unscrupulous. He deserves to die 1,000 times." However, Yunxi's face revealed a trace of reluctance as she said, "Father, although Zhougan did something wrong, you shouldn't have killed him." She was kind-hearted. Although she usually loathed Zhougan, she had never thought of taking his life. Now that she saw Zhougan's head, it was a huge blow to her. She found it hard to accept for a moment. Zhougan indeed deserves to die, using his death in exchange for the God Clan's Son of Gods. I think it's a good deal. What do you think, Lei Ling? Gu Tongtian smiled faintly. His gaze landed on Ling Xiao as if it had materialized. Sect master is right, Ling Xiao said calmly. However, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart as he recalled what Fuyao had said before. Gu Tongtian wanted to kill him. Gu Tongtian's killing intent was so weak that even experts of the same level could not detect it. However, Ling Xiao had become an emperor with the 12 Great Tao origins. The Great Tao of Destiny and the Great Tao of Karma were extremely sensitive to such thoughts of good and evil. The secret skill of Destiny and the secret skill of Karma had evolved into many wonderful secret skills. Ling Xiao could clearly feel that Gu Tongtian's killing intent towards him had only flashed for a moment. It was as if there was some kind of concern that prevented Gu Tongtian from attacking Ling Xiao now. You want to kill me? Very well. I want to see what kind of medicine you're selling in your gourd. Ling Xiao sneered in his heart. Chapter 30:12. The Immortal Demon Grotto was located in the center of the immortal world. The Immortal Demon Grotto was a mysterious place in the middle of the 6 major sects and the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. The land was vast and the mountain ranges were undulating. There was a huge whirlpool in the sky that was black and white. Divine light and immortal light intertwined, as if it led to another world. That huge whirlpool was the Immortal Demon Grotto. The Immortal Demon Grotto was usually sealed. The Divine Tao and Immortal Tao intertwined to form a perfect balance that sealed the grotto. Only once in a while, when the Immortal Demon Grotto showed signs of movement and the passageway opened, could one enter the Immortal Demon Grotto. The Immortal Demon Grotto was an ancient ruin, also known as the Imperial Battleground. There were countless inheritances and dangers in the Imperial Battleground. When the Immortal Demon Grotto first appeared, many people in the immortal world obtained powerful inheritances and became experts. But later, the Immortal Demon Grotto became the venue for the Immortal Demon Assembly. When the Immortal Demon Grotto opened, the Immortal Clan and the Immortal Clan would send their experts to fight in the grotto. The final winner would obtain the 6 Great Tao states. Over the years, the Immortal Clan lost more and more. The 9 major sects grew stronger and stronger, causing the Immortal Clan's habitat to shrink. At this rate, the Immortal Clan would lose all the Tao states to the 9 major sects in 2 more Immortal Demon Assemblies. And this Immortal Demon Assembly was extremely crucial. Whether it was the 6 major sects or the 9 major sects, they all wanted to win this immortal demon assembly. Because the legendary Eternal Emperor Road was about to open. And the Eternal Emperor Road was inextricably linked to the Immortal Demon Grotto. Originally, the Immortal Demon Grotto was filled with chaotic power of laws, so few people went there. But over the past few days, many people had appeared around the grotto. The Immortal Demon Grotto began to emit a blazing light. Mysterious space laws filled the air, indicating that the grotto was about to open. When Ling Xiao arrived, he saw that the Immortal Demon Grotto in the void was spewing out blazing rays of light and origin energy. Because of the Immortal Demon Grotto, the originally barren land had become a holy land for cultivation. Many people came to the Immortal Demon Grotto to borrow the majestic origin energy to cultivate. Among them, there were people from the 9 great immortal sects, as well as some rogue cultivators and experts from small clans and sections. Although they couldn't enter the Immortal Demon Grotto, they could use the massive amount of origin energy here to improve their cultivation before the grotto opened. With Ling Xiao as the leader, the old god cult sent out a total of 90 experts. Besides Ling Xiao, who was an imperial monarch, the others were all at the Immortal King Realm and Immortal Exalt Realm. The minimum requirement for the Immortal Demon Gathering was to be at the Immortal King Realm. As for the upper limit of cultivation, there was no requirement, but the age had to be below 10,000 years old. Therefore, it was decided that no matter if it was the 6 divine sects or the 9 immortal sects, they would send out their young disciples. Yunshi Saintess had wanted to participate in the Immortal Demon Conference, but she was rejected by Gu Tongtian. Using the reason that Yunshi Saintess had awakened her divine bloodline, she was forced to cultivate in seclusion. Therefore, with Ling Xiao as the leader, the old god cult sent out 90 experts, while Gu Tongtian hid in the dark and would only appear when the Immortal Demon Conference truly began. When Ling Xiao arrived at the Immortal Demon Grotto, he found that the area was shrouded in dense origin energy, like an ethereal cloud. Some of the experts from the 9 immortal sects had already arrived, occupying the peaks closest to the Immortal Demon Grotto, and were devouring the origin energy gushing out of the grotto. Among the 6 divine sects, the Still Destruction sect had also arrived. With Lung Feng as the leader, the Still Destruction sect had a total of 90 disciples, occupying a peak. However, Ling Xiao found that the Still Destruction sect was in conflict with someone else. Alcade Immortal sect, aren't you being a little too overbearing? We came here first, what right do you have to force us to leave? A disciple of the Still Destruction sect said indignantly. In front of them was a group of young men and women in Taoist robes, their temperaments transcendent and ethereal. Their faces were cold, and their eyes were as bright and mysterious as the stars. They exuded an air of superiority from head to toe. Overbearing? Do you think lowly ants like you are worthy of occupying this mountain? Get out of here, or don't blame us for being rude. A young man with a cold face sneered. His eyes were full of disdain. There were a total of 9 peaks closest to the Immortal Demon Grotto. These 9 peaks could be called sacred grounds for cultivation, shrouded in boundless origin energy. The 9 immortal sects were the first to discover the changes in the Immortal Demon Grotto, so they arrived early and occupied the most advantageous terrain. The other 8 peaks were occupied by the other 8 immortal sects. After the Still Destruction sect arrived, they occupied the 9th peak under the leadership of Lung Feng. When the Alcade Immortal sect arrived, they naturally targeted the peak occupied by the Still Destruction sect and came to cause trouble. The disciples of the other 8 immortal sects looked at the people from the Still Destruction sect and Alcade Immortal sect with indifferent expressions, as if they were watching a show. However, everyone could see that the Alcade Immortal sect was stronger than the Still Destruction sect. Devour! The strongest in the Still Destruction sect, Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe, were second-level immortal monarchs. They had both entered the Hall of Gods before, so they were the leaders of the Still Destruction sect. However, other than the 2 of them, the others were also immortal kings and immortal sovereigns. On the other hand, the Alcade Celestial sect was different. Although there were only 60 people in the Alcade Celestial sect, there were a total of 10 disciples from the Celestial Duke realm. Moreover, the young man in the lead was dressed in a starry Taoist robe and was surrounded by celestial light. The immortal demon gathering hasn't started yet. Does the Alcade Immortal sect want to fight with us? Lung Feng's eyes flashed coldly as he said coldly, "Fight with us? You think you're worthy? If you know what's good for you, get out of here. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't even be able to enter the immortal demon grotto." The cold young man said. The disciples of the 9 immortal sects were naturally arrogant. They were incomparably arrogant in front of the other immortal sects, let alone the people from the 6 immortal sects. In the eyes of the 9 immortal sects, the disciples of the 6 immortal sects were targets to be hunted down. They didn't have the right to stand with them. Therefore, the Alcade Immortal sect naturally thought that they should occupy this peak. "What if we don't leave?" Lung Feng said coldly with a trace of killing intent in his eyes. "Don't leave? If you don't leave, then stay here." Among the disciples of the Alcade Immortal sect, the young man who was surrounded by the stars finally spoke. He was Ren Tianjue, the most talented holy son of the Alcade Immortal sect. The holy son, Ren Xiaoyao, was his younger brother. Chapter 30:13. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of swords being unsheathed could be heard as the disciples of Terminator sect and Alcade Immortal sect took out their weapons. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at each other. It was as if a great battle was about to break out. Lung Feng stared at Ren Tianjue as his blood and qi surged around him. His nirvana origin body emitted a blood-red radiance that was filled with an aura of nirvana. His battle intent soared. Initially, they would be patient when facing the 9 immortal sects. However, ever since they followed God's child, the bloodline shackles were broken and they became part of the deity clan. The pride and glory of the deity clan had returned. Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe had no intention of backing down, even if it meant a great battle with Ren Tianjue. "Stubborn!" Ren Tianjue sneered coldly. He didn't take Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe seriously at all. His body was surrounded by dazzling immortal light and there was a faint galaxy that appeared in his eyes, making him look even more mysterious. The genius disciples of the 6 immortal sects couldn't be compared to the disciples of the 9 immortal sects. Even if they were in the same realm, they would lose more than they would win, let alone Ren Tianjue, who was 1 realm higher than them. Ren Tianjue decided to teach Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe a lesson to intimidate the 6 immortal sects. In the eyes of the 9 immortal sects, the so-called Immortal Demon Conference was their home ground. The disciples of the 6 immortal sects were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Alcade Immortal sect is really impressive. At this moment, a calm voice resounded in the void. Ling Xiao walked over with the disciples of the Old God sect. His eyes were calm and deep as they fell on Ren Tianjue, exuding a majestic aura. "Greetings, God's child." Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe couldn't help but tremble when they saw Ling Xiao. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they bowed to Ling Xiao. "Old God sect? Or you? How dare you meddle in the affairs of Alcade Immortal sect?" Ren Tianjue glanced at Ling Xiao and said coldly. He could see that Ling Xiao was only a first heaven immortal lord. How dare he act so presumptuously in front of him? How ridiculous! "I'll give you 3 breaths time to get lost." Ling Xiao said calmly. "How dare you? What are you? How dare you be so impudent in front of our holy son?" A disciple from the Alcade Immortal School shouted. A sharp light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. In an instant, it was as though a sharp beam of light had pierced through the void and slammed into the body of that disciple. Boom! The Alcade Immortal sect's disciple's body trembled as if he was struck by lightning. Blood spurted out from between his eyebrows as he was sent flying. Even though he had the cultivation of an immortal venerable, he still couldn't withstand a single glance from Ling Xiao. "How dare you?" Ren Tianjue's eyes flashed with a cold light. He didn't expect Ling Xiao to be so tyrannical, directly attacking the disciples of the Alcade Immortal sect. Rumble! Blazing immortal light rose around him, as if there was a river of stars lingering around him, causing his aura to become incomparably terrifying. 3 breaths have passed. Looks like you didn't take my words to heart. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Boom. His eyes instantly became incomparably sharp, like a peerless sword light. His aura became incomparably terrifying as he threw a punch towards Ren Tianjue. Chaotic light rose. This punch was purely based on the strength of his physical body. However, the fist intent was extremely overbearing, as if an ancestor god had descended to the world, suppressing the heavens. It was extremely ferocious and overbearing. Ren Tianjue's expression changed drastically as he instantly felt a fatal danger approaching him. Zhou Tian's Great Starfall Immortal Technique. Ren Tianjue roared as he displayed the supreme immortal technique of the Alcade Immortal Sect. Blazing immortal light rose around his body, transforming into a vast river of stars. Endless starlight sprinkled down as supreme stars appeared out of thin air, containing unparalleled divine strength, suppressing Ling Xiao. At the same time, the river of stars gathered around him as if it had separated the endless time and space in an instant, forming an incomparably powerful defensive starry divine light. Kacha! A huge fist print swept across the sky, causing the supreme stars to explode instantly like they were made of paper. They could not stop the fist print at all. The so-called Zhou Tian's Great Starfall Immortal Technique was so fragile under Ling Xiao's punch. Even the defensive starry divine light around Ren Tianjue was shattered with a loud bang. Ling Xiao's punch landed on Ren Tianjue's chest without any hindrance. Boom! The starry robe on Ren Tianjue's body trembled violently before it exploded into a pile of dust. Ren Tianjue's chest caved in, and a huge bloody hole appeared in the air. Ren Tianjue was sent flying as blood spurted out of his mouth. With a single punch, Ren Tianjue, who was a third Heaven High Immortal, was defeated. What? Everyone from the Alcade Immortal Sect was stunned. Ren Tianjue was their eldest senior brother and the most powerful saint in the Alcade Immortal Sect. How could he not even be able to withstand a single punch from Ling Xiao? The surrounding experts from the other 8 immortal sects were also extremely shocked. They had originally thought that they were just watching a show and did not care about it. Moreover, they also believed that the Terminator Immortal Sect would be at a disadvantage in the end. However, they did not expect such an outcome. The young man from the Old God Sect was actually so powerful. Who was he? It's him? Lei Ling? In the heaven-piercing Immortal Sect, a young man suddenly opened his eyes. Sharp sword radiance gushed out, causing countless ancient swords around him to hum. He was the Sword Heart Saint of the heaven-piercing Immortal Sect. It was as if Ling Xiao's punch had startled him and awakened him from his cultivation. He instantly saw the scene of Ling Xiao defeating Ren Tianjue with a single punch. Speaking of which, he had a bet with Ling Xiao regarding the shards of the Divine Cauldron. At that time, he did not take Ling Xiao seriously at all. After all, the gap between him and Ling Xiao was too big. However, he did not expect Ling Xiao to break through to the immortal high immortal realm in such a short period of time. Moreover, his combat strength had increased tremendously. Very good. Only then are you worthy of my sword. The Sword Heart Saint whispered to himself as a strong fighting spirit surged in his eyes. Ling Xiao's punch had defeated Ren Tianjue, which made all the disciples of the Terminator Immortal Sect and the Old God Sect extremely excited. Lung Feng and Ye Tianhe even felt that it was natural. The Son of God was peerless. How could a mere Ren Tianjue be a match for the Son of God? The contempt in the eyes of the people from the 9 great immortal sects had also disappeared. Instead, they looked at Ling Xiao with a solemn expression. Ling Xiao's strength had made them start to take the fight seriously. Chapter 30:14. He is Lei Ling. Someone exclaimed and revealed Ling Xiao's identity. Lei Ling? That Lei Ling who is known as the romantic immortal king? Isn't he a member of the immortal tribe? How did he become a member of the ancient god cult? Have you noticed? There is no immortal Dao aura on Lei Ling's body. Even his immortal root has disappeared. Instead, he has an extremely pure god Dao aura. This bastard destroyed his immortal root and merged it with his god bone? He is a traitor to the immortal tribe. That's right. Lei Ling is a traitor to the immortal tribe, a scum. After the people from the 9 major immortal sects discovered Ling Xiao's identity and the disappearance of his immortal root, they were instantly filled with righteous indignation. Their gazes towards Ling Xiao were filled with disdain and anger. In their opinion, the immortal tribe was superior and was the most powerful tribe in the universe. How could someone betray the immortal tribe and become a member of the God tribe? This was unforgivable. However, because Ling Xiao had just defeated Ren Tianjue with one punch and displayed an extremely powerful combat strength, they did not dare to make a move. They could only discuss softly. Lei Ling, very good. I will remember you. Ren Tianjue coughed up blood and his face was extremely pale. He looked at Ling Xiao with anger and fear. However, he also understood that he had kicked an iron plate. Therefore, he only left behind a ruthless sentence and left the mountain with the disciples of the Alcade Immortal Sect. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. He did not say anything and allowed Ren Tianjue and the rest to leave. In fact, he had originally intended to leave Ren Tianjue behind. However, he felt that in the depths of the void, there were several powerful auras. Those were the most powerful people from the 9 major immortal sects, and there was no lack of peerless immortal dukes. If Ling Xiao dared to make a move, they would definitely stop him. Ling Xiao thought for a while and decided not to make a move. Anyway, the Immortal Demon Conference was about to begin. By then, it would be easy to kill Ren Tianjue. In the past Immortal Demon Conferences, the Immortal Tribe had taken the role of the hunter. They treated the God Tribe as their prey and killed many powerful people from the God Tribe. However, this time, Ling Xiao felt that it was time to reverse the situation. It was time for the Celestials to have a taste of the fear of being hunted. Sir God's child, there are still a few days before the Immortal Demon Grotto opens. Please stay here and cultivate. Lung Feng said to Ling Xiao. He took the initiative to hand over the mountain peak to Ling Xiao. Dense divine Tao and immortal Tao aura gushed out from the Immortal Demon Grotto, as well as boundless origin energy. Cultivating here could be said to be progressing by leaps and bounds. Furthermore, by absorbing the power of the source, he would be able to integrate with the aura of the Immortal Demon Cave better. By then, there would be fewer obstacles when entering the Immortal Demon Cave. Therefore, the people of the 9 great immortal sects were seizing the time to cultivate and devour the surging origin energy. No need. Cultivate well here, I have a better place. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His eyes flickered as he looked at the Sword Heart Saint, who was on a mountain peak in the distance. Their gazes clashed in the air, causing the surrounding space to tremble slightly. The surrounding origin energy surged, sweeping out in all directions like a storm. Ling Xiao took a step forward and appeared in front of the Sword Heart Saint. Sword Heart Saint, we meet again. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Lei Ling, I didn't expect you to betray the old God sect. The Sword Heart Saint said faintly. Betray the old God sect? That's not right. I am a member of the deity tribe, how can I betray the immortal tribe? But you, have you brought the shards of the divine cauldron? Ling Xiao shook his head and said. This time, he was here for the shards of the divine cauldron. The shards of the divine cauldron from the 6 great immortal sects were already in his hands. If he could obtain the shards of the divine cauldron from the heaven-piercing immortal sect, then he would be able to collect a large portion of the cauldron of creation. Ling Xiao always felt that if he could obtain the shards of the divine cauldron in advance, it might be beneficial for him to enter the immortal demon cave. The shards of the divine cauldron are all with me. What about the immortal culling sword? The Sword Heart Saint's eyes were filled with strong battle intent. There was a bet between him and Ling Xiao. It was regarding the ownership of the shards of the divine cauldron, the great immortal culling art, and the immortal culling sword. The Sword Heart Saint had been preparing for this battle for a long time. Although Ling Xiao had just defeated Ren Tianjue with one punch, he was not afraid, but was filled with confidence and battle intent. The immortal culling sword is naturally in my hands too. As for the gambling match between you and me, I think it's better to do it now than to pick a date. How about we fight today? Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. Sure. You have broken through to the immortal realm, so I am not bullying you. But you can't win this battle. The Sword Heart Saint said indifferently, his eyes as bright as a blade. Lei Ling wants to fight with the Sword Heart Saint? Everyone couldn't help but be stunned. They had initially thought that Ling Xiao was audacious and wanted to snatch the mountain peak of the heaven-piercing immortal sect. They had not expected Ling Xiao to fight with the Sword Heart Saint. The Sword Heart Saint's strength was unparalleled. Among the 9 great immortal sects, he was ranked in the top 3. Moreover, the Sword Heart Saint's cultivation had reached the peak of the 3rd heaven of the immortal realm. He was not someone Ren Tianjue, who had just broken through to the 3rd heaven of the immortal realm, could compare with. The Sword Heart Saint was the most dazzling sword genius of the heaven-piercing immortal sect. He had cultivated the great immortal slaying art and great immortal trapping art. His strength was unfathomable. How dare Lei Ling challenge the Sword Heart Saint? Lei Ling is courting death. His physical body is strong. Although he has just defeated Ren Tianjue, does he really think he can defeat the Sword Heart Saint? Someone sneered. He is overestimating himself. I think he will die under the Sword Heart Saint's sword in this battle. The Immortal Demon Conference has not started yet, but the 6 great immortal sects and the 9 great immortal sects can't wait to fight? I don't think so. They probably won't fight. The Eternal Immortal Dynasty will not allow them to fight outside the Immortal Demon Cave. Everyone was discussing. Most of them did not think that Lei Ling could defeat the Sword Heart Saint. There were also people who thought that the battle between Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint would not happen. After all, the Immortal Demon Conference was about to start. The Eternal Immortal Dynasty was the initiator of the Immortal Demon Conference. Although the Eternal Immortal Dynasty did not participate in the Immortal Demon Conference, they had absolute say in it. If Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint fought, it would be considered a private fight. It would be challenging the authority of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. The people from the Eternal Immortal Dynasty should be arriving soon. Buzz. Just as everyone was discussing, a dazzling immortal light suddenly shone down from the void. Celestial music was pleasing to the ears, and flowers fell from the sky. A mysterious vision appeared, making the heaven and earth seem peaceful and ethereal. Everyone could not help but tremble. The people from the Eternal Immortal Dynasty had arrived. Chapter 30:15. A group of beautiful and refined women in light muslin walked through the air. Every single one of them had a peerless appearance and an ethereal temperament. Behind them were 2 rows of young warriors in black armor. They held long spears in their hands and their faces were cold. They were surrounded by a murderous aura and their eyes were cold. Their auras were extremely powerful. One look and one could tell that they were elites who had been through hundreds of battles. In the middle of the group were 9 golden dragons. They were pulling a void war chariot made of divine gold. The void war chariot was ancient and mysterious. It was surrounded by bright immortal light and emitted an emperor's aura. The muslin fluttered and auspicious air rose. A young figure seemed to be sitting on top of the war chariot. No one could see his face clearly, but there was a majestic aura around him. It was as if a heavenly emperor had come out. It was awe-inspiring. Hiss! Someone sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with incomparable horror. 36 beautiful women, 36 armored warriors, and 9 golden divine dragons were all at the high immortal realm. The figure on top of the void war chariot was even more terrifying. Some people did not even dare to look at him. They could not help but lower their heads. Their hearts were filled with shock. The foundation of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty was indeed terrifying. This is the 9th Prince's Immortal Emperor War Chariot? I did not expect the 9th Prince to come to the Immortal Demon Conference. Someone from the 9 great immortal sects exclaimed. His eyes were filled with excitement. The 9th Prince? Could he be the 9th Prince of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty? The one who is said to be unparalleled and blessed by the heavens? It is said that he is the most talented of the 9 princes of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. Even the Crown Prince was not as good as the 9th Prince. He is highly regarded by the immortal emperor. Who would have thought that he would come? Someone discussed in a low voice. This ninth prince could be said to be very famous in the immortal world. His name was like thunder to the ears. In the immortal world, the number one genius of the younger generation was none other than the ninth prince. No one doubted this. Even the geniuses of the 9 immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects paled in comparison to the ninth prince. They were like fireflies before the bright moon. The Tai celestial sect was the strongest of the 9 major celestial sections. Back when the ninth prince had become a celestial duke, he had defeated Tai Yuan, the saint of the Tai celestial sect, with just one punch. At that time, the ninth prince had defeated Tai Yuan, who was 2 minor realms higher than the ninth prince. He was defeated without any suspense. On a mountain closest to the immortal demon cave, Tai Yuan slowly opened his eyes among the disciples of the Tai celestial sect. His eyes were filled with dread when he looked at the figure in the void chariot. Even though Tai Yuan was already a 5th-level high immortal and could be considered the strongest among the younger generation of the 9 great immortal sects, he still hadn't reached the peak. However, he still did not have the confidence to face the ninth prince. His Highness has ordered that before the immortal demon cave opens, no one is allowed to fight. Beside the chariot, an old man in a Taoist robe, with white hair and a ruddy face like a baby, said indifferently. His voice was like thunder, spreading in all directions. Boom! A powerful and terrifying pressure spread out from his body and spread out in all directions. Everyone could not help but tremble as their eyes were filled with shock. The old man in the Taoist robe was a peerless celestial duke. The eternal celestial dynasty attached great importance to this immortal demon conference. Not only had they sent the ninth prince, but they had also sent a peerless celestial duke. A peerless celestial duke was a peerless expert who stood at the 9th level of the celestial duke realm. They were the strongest below the great emperors, and their strength was unfathomable. Even among the 9 major celestial sects, there were very few of them. It's him! Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he looked at the immortal emperor chariot. He recognized the ninth prince. So the mysterious celestial prince in the demon world was the ninth prince. Ling Zhao had not expected to meet the ninth prince of the immortals here. Moreover, the ninth prince's cultivation was unfathomable. Even Ling Zhao could not tell what level he was at. Lei Ling, since the ninth prince has given the order, let's postpone our battle. We'll continue after we enter the immortal demon cave. The Sword Heart Saint looked at Ling Zhao and said plainly, the 9 major celestial sects were under the rule of the eternal celestial dynasty. Therefore, the Sword Heart Saint could only obey the ninth prince's orders. Sure, but I hope that the Sword Heart Saint can keep the 32 shards of the sacred cauldron with you. They are my spoils of war. Ling Zhao smiled faintly. Shameless boasting. Let's talk about it after you defeat me. The Sword Heart Saint sneered and returned to the heavenly connecting immortal sect disciples. Seeing that Ling Zhao and the Sword Heart Saint did not fight, the spectators were disappointed. However, because of the ninth prince's arrival, everyone became obedient. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. He could feel the ninth prince's gaze on him from the immortal emperor chariot. At this moment, a woman in a veil floated over and arrived in front of Ling Zhao. Lei Ling, my prince invites you. Please follow me. She looked at Ling Zhao and said plainly, devour. All right. Ling Zhao pondered for a moment and replied plainly. He also wanted to see what the ninth prince wanted to do. Ling Zhao did not think that the ninth prince would be able to recognize him. Perhaps it was because he had become the son of God. Ling Zhao came to the side of the immortal emperor chariot. Buzz. There was a cloud of mist and a dazzling celestial light. The veil on the immortal emperor chariot slowly parted, revealing the figure inside. That was a perfect and flawless man. On the immortal emperor chariot, the ninth prince was wearing a white robe. He was tall and slender, and his skin was as white as ivory. He was crystal clear and exuded a celestial light. He had an extremely perfect face and was as handsome as jade. It was as if he had transcended the mortal world. His entire body was intertwined with Tao and truth. His face was calm and there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. His eyes contained an extremely mysterious light, as if he could see the birth and death of the heavens. It was also like a deep starry sky that made people want to sink into it. It was indeed the prince of the immortal tribe that Ling Xiao had met before. Even his appearance was exactly the same. Are you Lei Ling? There's a familiar aura on your body. Have we met before? The ninth prince said plainly. His voice was ethereal and gentle. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. The ninth prince had a sharp intuition. However, Ling Xiao did not show it and said, I am Lei Ling. Today is the first time I have met your highness. Is that so? Then I might have sensed wrongly. His Highness the ninth prince smiled faintly. Chapter 30:16. What business does the ninth prince have with me? Ling Xiao glanced at the ninth prince and asked calmly. The ninth prince seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog, like an unfathomable ocean. No one could sense his true cultivation level. However, Ling Xiao could feel that the ninth prince gave him a very dangerous feeling. Lei Ling, you were originally from the immortal tribe, but I did not expect you to become the god's child. My purpose for meeting you is simple. Become my follower and I will guarantee that you will be able to become an emperor. His Highness the ninth prince smiled faintly. He didn't try to hide anything and directly stated his purpose. He actually wanted to recruit Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao his follower. You will guarantee that I will become an emperor? Your Highness, you haven't become an emperor yet, have you? Ling Xiao smiled calmly and said non-committally. The ninth prince had said the same thing back in the demon realm's Great Desolation's secret realm. Although the ninth prince's cultivation was unfathomable, he was only a celestial lord. Since he had not proven his Tao and become an emperor, where did he get the confidence to guarantee that Ling Xiao would be able to prove his Tao and become an emperor? An emperor could dominate the heavens and was invincible. He was the most powerful person in the heavens, not a cabbage. How could he become an emperor just because he wanted to? Although Ling Xiao did not know what the ninth prince was relying on, he naturally did not believe his words. He believed that he could reach that step by relying on himself and without the help of others. The ninth prince seemed to understand what Ling Xiao meant and smiled calmly. Lei Ling, I know you don't believe me, but you don't know how strong the eternal immortal dynasty is. If I say that I will guarantee that you will become an emperor, you will definitely become an emperor. However, I don't expect you to give me an answer now. After the Immortal Demon Conference, if you are still alive, you have the right to become my follower. The ninth prince's voice was filled with confidence. Moreover, the meaning behind his words was that Ling Xiao did not have the qualifications to become his follower. Only after surviving the immortal demon gathering and being surrounded by the 9 great immortal sects would he have the qualifications to become the ninth prince's follower. I am from the god tribe now, not the immortal tribe. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Ling Xiao's eyes glinted as he spoke indifferently. Although he was displeased with the ninth prince's words, he did not say anything else. Instead, he turned and left. However, Ling Xiao had a premonition that he and the ninth prince would have a battle sooner or later. Looking at Ling Xiao's departing figure, the ninth prince's eyes flashed with a strange light. Your Highness, although this Lei Ling is the son of God, his cultivation is still too weak. Even if you subdue him and make him your follower, I'm afraid he won't be of much help to you on the eternal emperor's road, right? The old man in Taoist robes beside the immortal emperor chariot said slowly. His cultivation may not be of much help to me, but his identity is of great help to me. The Son of God is related to the destiny and fortune of the God race. If he follows me, then my final step will be complete. His Highness the ninth prince said with a faint smile. There was a strange light in his eyes. I'm just afraid that this person will be unruly and unwilling to become your follower. The old man in Taoist robes said as he looked at Ling Xiao's back. Don't worry, he will. If he dies in the immortal demon cave, it means that he's not the real son of God. If he's still alive, then I'll personally subdue him. His Highness the Ninth Prince smiled faintly. If your Highness takes action personally, then there won't be a problem. The old man in Taoist robes nodded as if it was a matter of course. As long as the Ninth Prince took action, he would be able to completely subdue Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao led the disciples of the old god cult to a random mountain peak and sat down cross-legged. He began to cultivate while waiting for the immortal demon cave to open. Although they didn't know what Ling Xiao and the Ninth Prince were talking about, everyone's eyes were filled with curiosity when they saw Ling Xiao being summoned by the Ninth Prince for such a long time. The Ninth Prince was a legend in the immortal world. It was said that the Ninth Prince had several followers, and each of them was extremely powerful. However, the Ninth Prince had very high requirements for his followers. Even the Taiyuan saint of the Tai immortal sect was not qualified to become his follower. Could it be that Ninth Prince is trying to recruit Lei Ling? Even the Taiyuan saint can't become the Ninth Prince's follower. What does Lei Ling do? Someone guessed in a low voice. Many of the genius disciples of the 9 major immortal sects looked at Ling Xiao with jealousy. Even the Taiyuan saint's face was a little gloomy. Although they did not know the details, the rumors were true. When the Taiyuan saint had been defeated by the Ninth Prince, he had wanted to become the Ninth Prince's follower. As a disciple of the Tai immortal sect, the Taiyuan saint knew better than anyone how powerful and terrifying the eternal immortal dynasty was. He also knew how strong the Ninth Prince was. If Taiyuan could become the Ninth Prince's follower, it would not be a disgrace, but an honor for him. However, the Ninth Prince had rejected him in the end. Although the Taiyuan saint felt extremely humiliated and angry, he did not dare to vent his anger because of the Ninth Prince's status. Now that he saw that the Ninth Prince favored Ling Xiao, the anger in his heart was transferred to Ling Xiao. What qualifications did a mere cultivation at the first level of the imperial monarch realm have to make the Ninth Prince look favorably upon him? The Taiyuan sage's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He made up his mind to bury Lei Ling in the immortal demon cave forever after they entered. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He could feel many of the people from the 9 major immortal sects looking at him with ill intent. The Ninth Prince had only met him once, but he had become the target of public criticism. Ridiculous! If you dare to provoke me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed coldly as he thought to himself. The people from the 9 major immortal sects all had their own ulterior motives. They had already regarded the people from the 6 major immortal sects as prey. This was also the custom of the immortal demon grotto. Every immortal demon grotto suffered heavy casualties. Almost 90% of the experts would die in the immortal demon grotto. This time, Ling Xiao's presence attracted the attention of the 9 major immortal sects. Before long, Zhan Qin, Wu Hen, and the others arrived. There were a total of 540 people from the 6 major immortal sects. Led by Ling Xiao, they sat cross-legged in front of the immortal demon grotto, devouring origin energy to cultivate while waiting for the grotto to open. The supreme experts from the 6 major immortal sects and the 9 major immortal sects had also arrived. They walked in the air, their auras incomparably powerful. They were watching every movement in the immortal demon grotto. Chapter 30:17. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged outside the immortal demon cave and used the heaven-devouring secret skill to devour the origin energy that was escaping from the immortal demon cave. Ling Xiao's heaven-devouring secret skill had been cultivated to perfection, but he was still a step away from evolving the heaven-devouring origin energy. Ling Xiao could vaguely feel that if the heaven-devouring secret skill evolved the heaven-devouring origin energy, it would definitely give him a huge surprise. Perhaps at that time, he could use the heaven-devouring Great Tao origin energy to forcefully devour the Great Tao origin energy of others. That was the most terrifying part of the heaven-devouring secret skill. The origin energy that was escaping from the immortal demon cave was very chaotic. It was intertwined with various Great Tao energy. Experts below the Imperial Emperor realm did not dare to absorb and refine too much of it. They would only try to understand the mysterious aura within the origin energy. However, Ling Xiao did not have such concerns. The blazing divine light around him seemed to have formed a huge whirlpool that was constantly devouring the origin energy around him. The people from the 9 immortal sects looked at Ling Xiao coldly. They were filled with malice and even killing intent. It was not just Ling Xiao. Even the people from the 6 immortal sects were like prey in the eyes of the people from the 9 immortal sects. Although the people from the 6 immortal sects were furious, they could not do anything. Ling Xiao ignored them. After all, they were just a bunch of dead people in his eyes. There was no need to be angry with dead people. Just like that, 3 days passed quickly. The origin energy that was spewing out from the immortal demon cave was getting denser and denser. The blazing divine light shone brightly and the immortal light lingered around, evolving into various mysterious phenomena. Inside the immortal demon cave, layers upon layers of space rippled out like water, as if it contained an endless world. The immortal demon cave is opening. Someone's eyes flashed as he said slowly, "Rumble." As soon as he finished speaking, the immortal demon cave let out a thunderous roar. Blazing lightning rose up and chaotic mist was faintly discernible. It seemed to lead to another ancient world. A vast, ancient and majestic mysterious aura gushed out. Everyone could not help but tremble. They felt that they were incomparably small, as if they had come to an ancient world. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. In the immortal demon cave, a strange light flashed. It was colorful and dazzling. It made people unable to tell if it was real or an illusion. In front of everyone, it was as if a great Tao immortal flower bloomed. It was as bright as the sun, as vast as the starry sky. The space within the immortal demon grotto gradually became incomparably real. The rippling water calmed down, and a huge and ancient passageway appeared. The immortal demon cave was opened. At this moment, whether it was the people from the 9 sects or the 6 divine sects, all of them were looking at the immortal demon grotto with excitement and excitement. They knew immortal demon cave, and immortal demon cave. Immortal, great immortal. This was because the immortal demon grotto represented limitless opportunities and good fortune. As long as one didn't die, one's cultivation could advance by leaps and bounds, and there was even a chance to prove the great Tao. Immortal sect. Immortal god sect from the sect, and sect was immortal sect. Immortal sect was immortal from both sect and immortal sect. Immortal realms. Other than the people from the Shen race and the 9 great immortal sects, there were also some rogue cultivators who were incomparably excited as their breathing quickened. Although the opening of the immortal demon cave was a meeting between the immortal race and the immortal race, it didn't stop some rogue cultivators from entering. As long as one's cultivation was above the immortal king realm and below 10,000 years old, one could enter the immortal demon cave. However, every time the immortal demon grotto opened up, only a small number of cultivators would dare enter. At any rate, the immortal demon grotto was even more dangerous for loose cultivators. Rumble. The chariot emitted a resplendent light as the 9th prince stepped forward. He was enveloped in resplendent immortal light. His eyes were deep and indifferent. Everyone's eyes fell on the 9th prince. The 9th prince represented the eternal immortal dynasty and was the host of the immortal demon conference. Therefore, both the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects had to follow his orders. The immortal devil grotto has opened. The immortal devil gathering has officially begun. The 6 major divine sects and the 9 major immortal sects will send 1,080 people into the immortal demon grotto for 1 month. After 1 month, the winner will be the one with the most survivors. His Highness the 9th Prince said calmly. His voice was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. The people from the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects were calm. They already knew the rules. Each of the 9 major immortal sects would send out 60 people, making a total of 540 people. Each of the 6 major divine sects would send out 90 people, making a total of 540 people. These 1,080 people would enter the immortal demon grotto not to search for treasures or opportunities, but to kill. Killing was the main theme of the Immortal Demon Conference. Based on the hatred between the immortal race and the Shen race, once they entered the Immortal Demon Grotto without any restrictions or supervision, they would definitely fight to the death. The people from the 9 major immortal sects looked at the people from the 6 major divine sects with mocking and murderous eyes. They were like hungry wolves staring at sheep. After the 9th prince finished speaking, he returned to the chariot. "Let's go!" Taiwan Saint's eyes flashed sharply. He leaped up and led the people from the 9 major immortal sects into the Immortal Demon Grotto. "Let's go too!" The people from the 6 major divine sects looked at Ling Xiao. After hearing his order, they leaped up and disappeared into the Immortal Demon Grotto. Finally, there were a few hundred rogue cultivators. Although there were tens of thousands of rogue cultivators around the Immortal Demon Grotto, only a few hundred of them had the guts to enter. These few hundred people could be considered as desperados. After all, according to the usual practice of the Immortal Demon Conference, the survival rate of rogue cultivators could be said to be less than 1%. This time, the 9 major immortal sects and the 6 major divine sects had sent several supreme elders of the immortal monarch realm. However, among the 6 major divine sects, the ancient god sect had sent their sect master Gu Tongtian, which attracted the attention of the crowd. After all, Gu Tongtian was very famous in the immortal world. He was known as the genius of the divine clan. 10,000 years ago, he had stepped into the peerless immortal monarch realm. He had fought countless battles in his life and had never tasted defeat. Among the 9 major immortal sects, there were 2 peerless immortal monarchs. The sect master of the Tai Yi immortal sect, Tai Qingzi, and the sect master of the Tongtian immortal sect, Ning Yunji. In addition to the Taoist robed elder beside the 9th prince, there were 4 peerless immortal monarchs in this Immortal Demon Conference. Everyone looked at the 4 of them with eyes full of reverence. Peerless immortal monarchs were only 1 step away from the peerless emperor realm. Although that step had stopped countless people since ancient times, peerless immortal monarchs were the real powerhouses and were invincible in the world as long as the great emperor did not appear. Chapter 30:18. Gu Tongtian, it's been 10,000 years since we last met. Your cultivation has become even more unfathomable. Ning Yunji's gaze fell on Gu Tongtian as he smiled faintly. He was dressed in a long white robe. He was a very refined middle-aged man with a gentle temperament. His eyebrows were like swords, and there seemed to be a mysterious sword domain flashing in his eyes. He was the sect master of the heaven-reaching immortal sect. What he cultivated was the sword Tao. Moreover, he had mastered the great immortal slaying art and the great immortal trapping art at the same time. He was a famous expert in the immortal world. However, what the crowd did not know was that 10,000 years ago he had once fought against Gu Tongtian. In the end, he was defeated by Gu Tongtian. Therefore, although he looked extraordinary at this moment, he could not hide the trace of fighting spirit in his eyes. Ning Yunji, you're not bad either. But what are you doing here instead of staying in your Valley of Swords? Gu Tongtian said indifferently. You should know why I did it. Of course I'm waiting for the immortal slaughtering sword to return to its rightful owner. Ning Yunji said with a smile. Return it to its rightful owner? How arrogant! Gu Tongtian snorted coldly and said, the heaven-span 4 immortal swords originally belonged to my divine race, but they were stolen by a lowly person like you. You still dare to say that they will be returned to their rightful owner? Is the Zhu Xian sword in the hands of your disciple, Jianxin? It seems like you really put in a lot of effort for the immortal slaughtering sword. Gu Tongtian did not give Ning Yunji any face when he spoke. Without the immortal exterminating sword, how can he contend against the immortal slaughtering sword? However, it's a pity that after this immortal demon conference, the divine child of your divine race will fall in the immortal demon cave. Ning Yunji was not angry at all and said leisurely, isn't it too early to say that? In my opinion, not only will your disciple Jianxin die, the execution fairy sword will also fall into the hands of the Son of God. Lei Ling is the one chosen by the heavens. Our god race will definitely win this battle. Gu Tongtian sneered. There's no need for the two of you to argue. We'll see the results in a month. Tai Ching-zi, the sect master of the Tai Yi celestial sect, said with a smile like a peacemaker. He looked like a transcendent being. His hair and beard were all white, and his appearance was unique. He held a walking stick in his hand, and his body was surrounded by celestial energy. Clear energy rose, and his temperament was extraordinary. Tai Ching-zi, you sure are willing. Even Taiyuan is willing to let him enter the immortal demon grotto. Isn't he afraid that he'll die inside? Gu Tongtian glanced at Tai Ching-zi and said faintly. Tai Ching-zi looked gentle and kind, but Gu Tongtian knew that this old man was cruel and merciless. His strength was unfathomable. Compared to Tai Ching-zi, Ning Yunji was still weaker. Although Gu Tongtian didn't take Ning Yunji seriously, he was wary of Tai Ching-zi. What's there to be reluctant about? If he died in the immortal demon grotto, he could only blame himself for being too weak. If I can't even get past this tribulation, then what's the point of contending for the eternal emperor road? Tai Ching-zi smiled. That's right. This was just a small tribulation. On the eternal emperor road, there are countless geniuses and monstrous geniuses from all over the universe. There are also countless peerless experts since ancient times. The immortal demon grotto was originally their training ground, but I'm afraid you divines won't have the chance. Ning Yunji nodded and said, contending for the eternal emperor road? You're all very ambitious. I'm afraid that your strength won't match your ambition, and you'll all die in the immortal demon grotto. Gu Tongtian sneered. In the past immortal demon meetings, the 9 great immortal sects had mostly sent out ordinary disciples to avoid casualties. But for this immortal demon meeting, almost all the saints and saintesses of the 9 great immortal sects had come out. Gu Tongtian naturally knew the reason behind this. An eternal emperor's road. This was an irresistible temptation for everyone. It seems that you have a lot of confidence in the divines. Gu Tongtian, why don't we make a bet? Ning Yunji's eyes flashed as he said with a smile. Bet on what? Let's bet on whether there are more survivors from the divines or the immortals in this immortal demon meeting. If there are more survivors from the immortals, then I'll win and you'll give me the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor. How about that? Ning Yunji said. The portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor? You're really arrogant. But what if you lose? Are you willing to part with your immortal slaying sword and immortal trapping sword? Gu Tongtian's eyes flashed and he said indifferently. The portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor was a supreme treasure that Gu Tongtian had obtained from the ancient ruins. It contained the supreme Emperor Tao of the Grand Master Great Emperor. By comprehending the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor, one might be able to comprehend the Emperor Tao of the Grand Master Great Emperor and take the final step. Gu Tongtian had been comprehending the portrait for tens of thousands of years. It could be said that the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor was even more precious than an apex emperor weapon. Ning Yunji had been eyeing the portrait of the Tongtian Great Emperor for a long time. In his opinion, he was the most suitable person to study the portrait of the Tongtian Great Emperor since he had reached the profound level of sword principle and comprehended the great immortal slaying technique and the great immortal trapping technique. Of course I can't give you the immortal slaying sword and immortal trapping sword. But since you've comprehended the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor, you must be very coveting the 4 great immortal techniques, right? If you win, I can give you the great immortal trapping technique. Ning Yunji said with a smile. Not enough. If I win, I want the great immortal slaying technique and the great immortal trapping technique. Gu Tongtian's eyes flashed sharply. Ning Yunji frowned slightly. The great immortal slaying technique and the great immortal trapping technique were the foundation of the heavenly immortal sect. He did not expect Gu Tongtian to be so greedy. But he really coveted the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor. He believed that if he had the chance to comprehend the portrait of the Grand Master Great Emperor, he would definitely be able to carve out his own path. The Supreme Emperor Tao. All right, I promise you. Ning Yunji gritted his teeth and said after a moment of silence. Although he was full of confidence in the Sword Heart Saint, This was a huge gamble and there was still a huge risk. But when he thought of the Sword Heart Saint's trump card, he felt more at ease. Words are no guarantee. Make an ultimate heart demon oath. Gu Tongtian said. Ning Yunji naturally had no objections. Together with Gu Tongtian, they both made an ultimate heart demon oath. If they violated the ultimate heart demon oath, they would be devoured. If they suffered chi deviation, their cultivation would be greatly damaged. In the worst case, their souls would be destroyed and they would be devoured by their inner demons, never to be reincarnated. For celestial masters who had comprehended the origin of the great Tao, no one dared to violate the ultimate heart demon oath. Very well. Ning Yunji, prepare the great immortal slaying technique and the great immortal trapping technique. I'm sure I'll win. Gu Tongtian said with a faint smile. His eyes were full of confidence. Is that so? The sword heart won't lose so easily. Ning Yunji also said with a faint smile. Speaking of which, Ling Xiao and the Sword Heart Saint had already made 2 bets. One was the immortal slaying sword and the fragments of the divine cauldron. The other was the portrait of the Grandmaster Great Immortal Slaying Technique and the Great Immortal Trapping Technique. Even Tai Qingzi and the old man in a Taoist robe beside the 9th prince were slightly surprised. Between Gu Tongtian and Ning Yunji, it could be considered a heaven-shaking gamble. Chapter 30:19. Inside the Immortal Demon Cave. When Ling Zhao's vision became clear again, he was already in an ancient forest. He was alone. The huge whirlpool in the Immortal Demon Cave was originally a void passage. However, because the Immortal Demon Cave was the battlefield of the emperors, countless great Tao laws intertwined and the emperor's Tao was extremely chaotic, causing the void passage to be messed up. Even if one entered the Immortal Demon Cave, they could be transported to anywhere. Unfortunately, there was no one around Ling Xiao. There were towering ancient trees all around. The giant ancient trees were thousands of feet tall, and they were as thick as a dozen people hugging around them. Giant python-like vines wrapped around the trees and stretched upwards, greedily absorbing the weak sunlight. The ground was covered with thick leaves. One could tell that this place was very wild and uninhabited. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. He immediately retracted his aura and flew up to the top of the tree. What a vast forest! Is this the forest of life? Ling Xiao muttered to himself. In the distance, the mountain range was undulating, but it was filled with all kinds of towering ancient trees, forming a huge forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Moreover, due to the chaotic Emperor's Tao laws in the Immortal Demon Cave, it suppressed one's primordial spirit and perception greatly. Ling Xiao could only sense about 1,000 miles around him. Before entering the Immortal Demon Cave, Ling Xiao had already obtained a map of the Immortal Demon Cave. It was the map that the 6 major sects had exchanged blood and lives for over countless years. It was extremely precious, and it recorded the locations of some of the forbidden areas of the Immortal Demon Cave. The Forest of Life was one of the forbidden areas. The Forest of Life was an incomparably huge forest that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles. It was filled with various types of towering ancient trees that were full of vitality. There were countless exotic flowers and herbs, and even immortal and sacred herbs that were extinct in the immortal world. However, there were no animals in the Forest of Life. This was because the Forest of Life was shrouded in an extremely strange law that could devour the vitality of living beings. The longer one stayed in the Forest of Life, the faster their vitality would be devoured. Even an immortal monarch expert would turn into a pile of bones if they stayed in the Forest of Life for 3 days. Buzz. Ling Zhao's body trembled slightly as he felt the surrounding void vibrating. It was as if there was an extremely strange law that surged towards him like a fishing net, trying to devour all the vitality in his body. The feeling of being devoured was incomparably weak. Ordinary people would not even be able to detect it. However, Ling Zhao's senses were extremely sharp. Even the slightest loss of life force was immediately detected by him. What a strange law of devour. It's like some kind of extreme power. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. His physical body was incomparably powerful. It was the primordial immortal body, and he had even fused with the chaos divine bone. He had proven his Tao with 12 types of great Tao origins, so his physical body was extremely powerful. In addition, Ling Xiao still had the wordless heavenly book and the jade disc of fortune, 2 chaos treasures, but Ling Xiao could still feel his vitality draining away. Even though the loss of life force was very weak. Looks like I have to leave the forest of life as soon as possible. Ling Xiao thought to himself as he prepared to leave this place first. The immortal demon grotto was extremely strange. This was the true battlefield of great emperors. Legend had it that more than one great emperor had fallen here. After a great emperor fell, their extreme Tao power would repel the laws of heaven and earth around them, forming a mysterious area. This was also the origin of the forbidden area in the immortal demon grotto. Many people guessed that an extremely powerful great emperor must have fallen in the forest of life. However, because of the forest of life's strange ability to devour life force, many people stayed away from the forest of life. I have to find Zhang Qin and the others first, Ling Xiao thought to himself. Although the 6 great divine sects and the 9 great immortal sects had the same number of people, the disciples of the 6 great divine sects were obviously much weaker. If they didn't find the disciples of the 6 great divine sects in time, they would be easily defeated and killed by the 9 great immortal sects. Everyone knew that there was only one goal in entering the immortal demon grotto, and that was to kill as many opponents as possible. Although there weren't any ferocious beasts in the forest of life, some of the plants had mutated and become monsters. They were extremely powerful. The strange thing was that the forest of life would devour the life force of animals, but it didn't affect the plants. In order to prevent any accidents, Ling Xiao retracted his aura and stepped into the void. He hid in the treetops and silently flew into the distance. Suddenly, the sound of fighting came from ahead. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Could it be that the immortal clan and the immortal clan were transported into the forest of life and started fighting? Ling Xiao thought and instantly flew towards the direction of the fight. Boom! A sharp flash of sword light descended and severed a huge vine. Green juice splattered everywhere, containing extremely powerful corrosive properties. It caused the surrounding trees to sizzle as a large area was corroded. 4 or 5 young men in white robes with immortal swords in their hands formed the sword formation of the 4 divisions. They surrounded a huge vine in the center. That vine's roots were extremely thick and strong. Black fog surrounded it, and a ferocious human face appeared. Hundreds of tentacles danced, each as fast as lightning, as if they could pierce through everything. This was a vine demon. However, the vine demon looked extremely miserable. More than half of its tentacles had been cut off, and only a dozen thick tentacles were left. They emitted a metallic luster and were extremely sturdy. They kept blocking the sword chi that came from all directions. However, it seemed that the vine demon couldn't hold on for much longer. Bush, bush, bush. The immortal swords in the hands of the 4 young men suddenly emitted a dazzling light. 4 powerful sword chi soared into the sky and instantly merged into one in the void. It turned into a huge sword chi that was tens of thousands of feet long and slashed down from the sky. Although the vine demon let out a sharp cry, it was still cut in half and completely killed. However, the 4 young men in white robes also looked very miserable. There were some bloodstains on their bodies. In the process of fighting the vine demon, they still suffered some injuries. They only breathed a sigh of relief when the vine demon was completely killed by them. What a difficult vine demon. If we didn't cultivate the sword formation of the 4 divisions, I'm afraid the 4 of us would have fallen into its trap. A young man in white robes wiped the sweat on his forehead and said with some lingering fear, "This kind of vine demon is very common in the forest of life. We still have to be careful. Everyone restrain your aura. The most important thing for us is to find the entrance to the ruins. This is the most important thing that the saint has instructed us to do." The leading young man in white robes said with a serious expression, "Yes." The other 3 young men in white robes nodded in unison. Eternal Emperor. Chapter 30-20. The four of them used a secret technique to restrain their auras and headed towards the depths of the forest of life silently. People from the true martial immortal sect? Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the origins of these four white-robed youths. The true martial immortal sect was one of the sects that kept a low profile. However, the strength of their disciples was extremely strong. For example, they had sent a total of more than 10 disciples of the monarch realm. The four white-robed youths were at the first heaven of the monarch realm. Outside the cave of the immortal demon, the four white-robed youths and the holy son of the true martial immortal sect had shown killing intent towards Ling Zhao. Ling Zhao originally wanted to kill the four white-robed youths directly. However, when he heard them talking about the entrance of the relic, he could not help but be tempted and began to bide his time. The entrance of the relic? Could it be the place of inheritance of the great emperor? Ling Zhao thought to himself. The forest of life was extremely strange. In the past, even the 9 sects would take a detour and not dare to enter the forest of life. However, from the words of the 4 disciples of the true martial immortal sect, did they find some kind of relic in the forest of life? Looks like the true martial immortal sect must have discovered the secret of the forest of life during the previous immortal demon conference. Let's see what the relic they are talking about is first. Ling Zhao's mind spun, and he immediately followed after him. The 4 white-robed youths from the true martial immortal sect were not fast. Although they had retracted their auras, they were still extremely vigilant and slowly flew forward as if they were facing a great enemy. Ling Zhao followed them and flew towards the depths of the forest of life for tens of thousands of miles. In this tens of thousands of miles, the 4 white-robed youths encountered the vine demons twice. However, they managed to pass through them safely. Among them, there was even a 10,000-year ancient tree that was stronger than the vine demons. In the end, they had to use a celestial sword talisman to kill the tree demon. The 4 white-robed youths also had many more wounds on their bodies. In the depths of the forest of life, the white mist was faintly discernible. The mist was actually formed by the pure life origin. It made people feel energized when they took a breath of it. The trees here were also getting thicker and thicker. Some of them were even tens of thousands of feet tall, like mountains. It was incomparably terrifying. Ling Zhao felt a sense of danger from the trees. They were not as simple as they appeared to be. Perhaps they had already become demons. Moreover, although the white mist was formed from life origin, Ling Zhao instinctively sensed that if he dared to devour it, something unexpected would happen. Therefore, Ling Zhao still concealed his aura and did not devour any of the white mist. He quietly followed behind the 4 people from the true martial immortal sect. Soon, the 4 white-robed young men stopped in a valley. In the valley, there were already disciples in white robes rushing over. However, all of them were at the high immortal realm and above. Anyone below the high immortal realm who dared to enter the forest of life was simply courting death. In the valley, many white-robed disciples were like stars surrounding the moon. In the center stood a young man with an imposing appearance. He wore a white robe, had a slender figure, and a handsome face. However, his eyes were incomparably sharp and cold. He exuded a powerful aura around him. His cultivation had already reached the 3rd heaven of the high immortal realm. Wu Xingchen. Ling Zhao's eyes flickered as he recognized the arrogant young man. He was the holy son of the true martial immortal sect, Wu Xingchen. As though there was an agreement, all the disciples of the high immortal realm and above from the true martial immortal sect came from all directions to the valley. Greetings, holy son. The 4 white-robed young men entered the valley and cupped their fists at Wu Xingchen. Their eyes were filled with respect. You're late. Wu Xingchen said indifferently. Holy son, please forgive us. We were sent a little too far away and encountered some vine demons on our way here. That's why we're late. The 4 white-robed young men explained. It's fine that you're late, but why did you bring a tail? Wu Xingchen said indifferently. What? The 4 white-robed young men's faces changed. They turned around abruptly and their eyes were filled with vigilance. The disciples of the true martial immortal sect standing beside Wu Xingchen also exuded a powerful aura. Their eyes were like lightning as they scanned their surroundings. However, they did not notice anything. What sharp senses! Ling Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Still not coming out? Wu Xingchen's eyes flashed coldly as he pointed his finger in the air. A sharp finger radiance instantly pierced through the layers of space and shot towards Ling Xiao. He had indeed discovered Ling Xiao. Boom! Ling Xiao revealed himself and threw out a simple punch towards Wu Xingchen's finger radiance. Chaotic light suddenly bloomed. The unparalleled fist print was overbearing and ferocious. It instantly shattered the finger radiance. Ling Zhao's figure appeared in front of the disciples of the true martial immortal sect. Lei Ling? How dare you follow us? The four white-robed young men were shocked and angry as they glared at Ling Xiao. They didn't expect Ling Xiao to follow them all the way to this valley. You're courting death. The many disciples of the true martial immortal sect all revealed ominous looks. In an instant, they leaped over and surrounded Ling Xiao. Their eyes revealed cold killing intent. Lei Ling, how dare you? Wu Xingchen stared coldly at Ling Xiao and shouted condescendingly. Ling Xiao's expression was calm and indifferent, as if he didn't put the surrounding true martial immortal sect's disciples in his eyes at all. His gaze fell on Wu Xingchen, and he smiled indifferently. I've always been very bold. Wu Xingchen, I'm curious. What relic did you find? Wu Xingchen's eyes flashed coldly. Ling Xiao knew about the relic. The four white-robed young men trembled and did not dare to look at Wu Xingchen. Lei Ling, do you know that you're playing with fire? Wu Xingchen enunciated each word expressionlessly. What? Are you trying to silence me? Ling Xiao said with a smile. You're courting death. Do you really think that you can behave atrociously in front of me just because your physical body is strong and you're lucky enough to defeat Ren Tianjue? Don't you want to know what relic it is? When you're dead, I'll burn it for you. Wu Xingchen's eyes flashed coldly as he walked towards Ling Xiao with a thunderous voice. A terrifying emperor's aura erupted from his body. Chapter 30-21. Rumble. The void trembled violently. Wu Xingchen and the immortal monarchs of the true martial immortal sect glared at Ling Xiao coldly. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Immortal light gathered around them as the origin of the great Tao intertwined. Vaguely, their auras merged into one, causing their strength to rise. The power of a battle formation? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. He sensed that the people of the true martial immortal sect had formed a powerful battle formation in an instant. This battle formation seemed to have fused everyone's power and gathered it on Wu Xingchen's body, causing his aura to skyrocket. Kill! Wu Xingchen's eyes flashed with killing intent as he threw a punch at Ling Xiao. His punch was filled with boundless immortal devouring force. It looked like a punch aimed at Ling Xiao, but thousands of trails appeared in the void. It was as if thousands of fists were attacking Ling Xiao at the same time, covering all his vital points. This was the true martial emperor fist. Wu Xingchen looked domineering and wanted to kill Ling Xiao to silence him. However, when he saw Ling Xiao defeating Ren Tianjue with a single punch, he became extremely vigilant. Therefore, not only did he order all the disciples of the true martial immortal sect to form the true martial battle formation, but he also used the supreme immortal emperor technique, the true martial emperor fist. Wu Xingchen believed that with the true martial battle formation and the true martial emperor fist, even a fourth heaven immortal monarch would be severely injured, if not killed. With this punch, a majestic emperor's aura spread out. It was as if the true martial great emperor had descended to suppress all enemies. Great! Ling Zhao's eyes lit up. This saint son of the true martial immortal sect actually had an incomparably strong fighting instinct. Moreover, he had cultivated the true martial emperor fist to an incomparably profound level. This fist contained the true meaning of martial arts, and had a kind of imposing manner that could suppress the heavens and earth. Ling Xiao did not hesitate and threw out a punch as well. Chaotic chi swirled around his body, vaguely in the shape of a dragon. It was as if an azure dragon was circling around him, domineering and mysterious. Around him, there was a faint image of 3,000 worlds rising. Since Ling Xiao had merged with the chaotic divine bone, his primordial immortal body had become even more terrifying. All his strength could be merged with the chaotic divine bone, allowing him to unleash his full strength. Therefore, his casual attack was even more terrifying than when he had unleashed all his strength before. Blazing divine light rose in the void as the two unparalleled fist prints collided. In an instant, a boundless storm erupted and swept out in all directions. Ling Xiao and Wu Xingqian's bodies trembled at the same time. Their robes and hair fluttered in the wind. When their gazes collided, it was as if a blazing light was emitted. However, Ling Xiao's figure did not change. Wu Xingqian, on the other hand, felt an invincible divine power attacking him. He immediately retreated, his arm trembling violently as if he had lost all feeling in it. Damn it! Wu Xingqian's face turned ashen in disbelief. He had gathered the power of the true martial battle formation and the cultivation of many true martial immortal sect disciples, but he was still knocked back by Ling Xiao's punch. Why don't you try taking a punch from me too? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His eyes became extremely sharp, and the aura around him became extremely violent. His qi and blood soared, domineering and mysterious. He leaped into the air and punched out. The fist print seemed to have come from the chaos. It was intertwined with endless killing intent. The mysterious scene of reincarnation and the death of tens of thousands of creatures vaguely appeared. It was as if the supreme ruler was going to reincarnate and create another era. The epic fist. After Ling Xiao's cultivation had broken through to the imperial emperor realm, his epic fist had finally reached the great success stage. It had merged with the power of the 12 great Tao origins, making this fist extremely terrifying. Before the fist arrived, the momentum was already there. Wu Xingqian's eyes seemed to have lost everything except for Ling Xiao's fist. His entire body trembled violently as if he was controlled by Ling Xiao's fist intent and had lost his mind. 7 strokes of heaven interception, kill! Wu Xingqian roared. The celestial light around him boiled, and it was as if endless sword qi was gushing out. He regained control of his mind in an instant. Then, the ancient sword in his hand shone with endless light, and he slashed down at Ling Xiao. The 7 strokes of heaven interception was the supreme immortal technique of the Zhenwu immortal sect. Legend had it that it was the supreme sword technique left behind by the Zhenwu immortal emperor. It was known as the 3 supreme sword techniques of the immortal world, along with the 4 great immortal techniques of the Grandmaster Immortal Emperor and the eternal sword scripture of the eternal immortal dynasty. When this sword slashed out, it seemed to have a mysterious sword intent that could destroy the chaos and shatter the heavens. Rumble! The sword radiance swept out in all directions and collided with the fist prints in the sky. It was as if billions of Ling Xiao and Wu Xingqian's figures were fighting. In an instant, tens of thousands of attacks had collided. In the end, the sword qi in the sky was shattered. Wu Xingqian coughed out blood and retreated. His face was extremely pale and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He had used the 7 strokes of heaven interception, but he was still defeated by Ling Xiao's fist. The supreme sword qi of the 7 strokes of heaven interception could destroy everything, but it only left an extremely small wound on Ling Xiao's body. Even Ling Xiao's fist prints could not break it. On the contrary, he could not withstand Ling Xiao's epic fist at all. His body was instantly injured. After Wu Xingqian was severely injured by Ling Xiao's epic fist, the Zhenwu battle formation shook violently and a flaw appeared. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. In an instant, endless divine light gushed out. Chaotic gas rose and shrouded the valley. It was as if a mysterious scene of the creation of heaven and earth had appeared. Ling Xiao instantly blasted out more than a dozen fist prints. The dozen immortal masters of the true martial immortal sect could not help but turn pale. They could not withstand Ling Xiao's fist prints at all. Their bodies trembled violently and they flew out as if they had been struck by lightning. They coughed out blood continuously. The Zhen Wu battle formation was broken in an instant. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Ling Xiao was like an ancient giant beast in front of them. He had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Even with so many of them, they could not trap Ling Xiao. Kill! Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with killing intent. Like a bolt of golden lightning, he flew across the sky and attacked the dozen immortal masters of the true martial immortal sect with his invincible fist prints. Ling Xiao's fist prints were too overbearing. How could the true martial immortal sect's disciples withstand them? Almost instantly, 3 immortal masters were blasted apart by Ling Xiao. Their physical bodies and indestructible primordial spirits exploded into a bloody mist. Their souls were completely scattered. Lei Ling, you deserve to die. Wu Xingqian's eyes turned red instantly. These were the hopes of the true martial immortal sect. Now, in the hands of Ling Xiao, they could not even resist and were massacred wantonly. This made him extremely angry, and he felt as if his heart was bleeding. Chapter 30-22. Clang. A strange sword chime shook the void. Extreme Emperor aura gushed out from Wu Xingqian's palm. In an instant, an ancient sword that was neither gold nor jade appeared. There were strange runes on it, and it shone with boundless light. The Extreme Emperor weapon of the true martial immortal sect, the true martial sword. As the holy son of the true martial immortal sect, Wu Xingqian naturally had a trump card to protect his life. In order to prevent him from dying in the immortal demon cave, the true martial immortal sect had handed the true martial sword to him. Now that he saw how powerful Ling Xiao was and how he was massacring the disciples of the true martial immortal sect, he was forced to use the true martial sword. The moment the true martial sword appeared, the surrounding void roared. Billions of sword chi resonated, and the flowers and trees trembled. They were affected by the powerful sword essence, as though they were worshipping the true martial sword. Even Ling Xiao felt a strong sense of danger. Although the 7 strokes of heaven interception could not break through Ling Xiao's physical defense, the true martial sword could definitely hurt him. Extreme Emperor weapon? Come and have a taste of my immortal culling sword. Ling Xiao sneered. The immortal culling sword appeared in his hand, and a terrifying murderous aura burst out. It rose up and flew towards the true martial sword. Rumble! The 2 Extreme Emperor weapons collided, and a loud roar erupted. Endless light swept out in all directions, causing the valley to tremble violently. The Extreme Emperor's aura spread out, startling many of the tree demons in the Forest of Life, causing them to show signs of fear. With the immortal culling sword blocking the true martial sword, Ling Xiao did not hesitate. He struck out like lightning, and his speed was extremely fast. Although the dozen immortal dukes of the true martial immortal sect had the same cultivation as Ling Xiao, which was the first heaven of immortal dukes, they could not withstand a single blow from Ling Xiao. Very quickly, those dozen over people were completely wiped out by Ling Xiao. In the valley, only Ling Xiao and Wu Xingqian were left. Looking at the broken limbs around them, the valley was filled with a strong smell of blood. The flesh and blood contained a vast amount of origin energy, causing the plants in the valley to grow rapidly. Furthermore, that strange aura spread out as if it could devour all life. It instantly caused the flesh and blood to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye before turning into ashes. A gust of wind blew past. It was as if only Ling Xiao and Wu Xingqian had appeared in the valley. It was as if the disciples of the true martial immortal sect had never appeared. Even Ling Xiao's heart was shaken when he saw such a strange scene. What a tyrannical devouring power! Lei Ling, my true martial immortal sect, and you are irreconcilable. Wu Xingqian's eyes were filled with hatred as he roared at Ling Xiao. But to Ling Xiao's surprise, Wu Xingqian didn't come up to fight Ling Xiao. Instead, he called back the Zhenwu sword, took out an immortal talisman, and slapped it on himself. Then, he disappeared from the valley without a trace. You sure run fast. Ling Xiao muttered to himself in surprise. This Wu Xingqian did not look like a brute. After all, To be able to become the holy son of the true martial immortal sect, regardless of talent or intelligence, he was outstanding. Wu Xingchen knew that he was no match for Ling Xiao, so he didn't let his anger get to his head. Instead, he ran away decisively. With the Jinwu sword in his hand, he devoured an immortal talisman. He took out an immortal talisman, and even Ling Xiao couldn't stop him in time. I killed too quickly just now. I forgot to spare the life of a disciple of the true martial immortal sect so that I could interrogate him about the entrance to the ruins. Ling Xiao looked at the empty valley and laughed bitterly. However, these disciples of the true martial immortal sect probably don't know where the entrance to the ruins is. Only Wu Xingchen knows this secret. Ling Xiao thought to himself, and the gloominess in his heart dissipated. He started to investigate the valley carefully. The valley wasn't big. It was only about 1,000 feet in radius. On the surrounding mountain walls, there were all kinds of vines. There were some strange flowers and herbs in the valley. It didn't look like there was anything special about it. However, since the disciples of the true martial immortal sect were here, it meant that the entrance to the ruins must be here. Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit spread out and covered the entire valley. He investigated inch by inch. Soon Ling Xiao found something strange. In the valley, there was a bare stone. It looked as smooth as jade and looked very ordinary. However, Ling Xiao noticed that this stone was extremely hard. There wasn't any moss growing on it. This stone is strange. Ling Xiao investigated for a while. The indestructible primordial spirit enveloped the stone, but he still couldn't find out what secrets this stone had. However, when Ling Xiao's primordial spirit touched the depths of the stone, there was a strong rebounding force that directly repelled Ling Xiao's primordial spirit. I'd like to see what's here. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. The chaotic light around him surged and his blood boiled. He threw out a punch. Boom! The unparalleled fist print directly hit the stone. Although the stone was extremely hard, it couldn't withstand Ling Xiao's fist print. In an instant, it broke into pieces and completely shattered. However, in the middle of the stone, there was an extremely bright light that bloomed. Rumble! The light was dazzling and instantly rose as if it was daytime. Accompanied by the blazing sound of thunder, it turned into an extremely powerful devouring vortex in front of Ling Xiao. After the devouring vortex appeared, all the flowers and trees in the valley instantly withered. It was as if all their vitality had been sucked out. The majestic devouring power surged and enveloped Ling Xiao's entire body. It contained an unparalleled power. Even though Ling Xiao's cultivation was strong, he still felt that his strength was insignificant in front of this devouring power. In an instant, he was swallowed by the vortex. However, Ling Xiao didn't feel any danger. After entering the vortex, Ling Xiao felt as if he had entered a space-time tunnel. However, this state didn't last for long. Soon, the light in front of Ling Xiao flickered and he appeared in an unfamiliar space. Where is this place? Ling Xiao was slightly stunned. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes. In front of him was an extremely dark space. It was like a world that was about to be destroyed. The sky was vast and the earth was vast. It was incomparably lonely. But in front of Ling Xiao was a broken stone tablet. It looked incomparably ancient, and there were even some dried blood stains on it. It exuded the mottled aura of the passage of time, and it faintly revealed several characters carved in ancient divine runes. Devouring Emperor. The remaining 4 large words were written in a flamboyant and domineering style. It seemed to contain a terrifying power that wanted to devour everything. Chapter 3023. The Devouring Emperor? Is this really the place where a great emperor fell? Ling Xiao's eyes flickered. However, he had never heard of such a devouring emperor in the immortal world. Perhaps the devouring emperor had existed for a very long time. The 4 words on the stone tablet were drawn with iron hooks and silver, sharp and unparalleled, as if they were carved with a sword. They contained a peerless sword essence that was endlessly growing. When Ling Xiao saw those 4 words, he could feel a majestic sword will surging. It was as though he could see a mysterious figure in the endless void. With a single slash of his sword, he could break through the heavens and destroy the demons. To be able to survive for so long and still grow endlessly, it was extremely terrifying. It was as if the sword essence could destroy one's spiritual soul. It must have been a Sword Dao Great Emperor. Could it be that a Sword Dao Great Emperor fought with the Devouring Emperor, which led to the Devouring Emperor's fall? I wonder where the Devouring Emperor's body is. Ling Xiao thought to himself, speculating about the scene back then. In the distance, there was a strange vibration that sounded like a heartbeat, causing the surrounding void to tremble. Ling Xiao stepped forward and walked into the distance. What's that? Ling Xiao's eyes flickered. He saw that in the distant void, hundreds of millions of sword qi intertwined and formed an incomparably vast sword domain. In the sword territory, there was a bright red heart that was the size of a mountain. It emitted dazzling immortal light and was surrounded by auspicious qi. At the same time, it emitted an extremely terrifying devouring power, forming a huge black vortex that was similar to the devouring territory. There seemed to be a strange balance between the sword territory and the devouring territory. However, Ling Xiao discovered that the heart actually seemed to be alive. It was beating rhythmically, and with every beat, a powerful devouring force would be emitted. Then, it would devour boundless life force from the endless void. The forest of life can devour the vitality of living beings. Could it be because of this heart? This is the heart of the devouring emperor? Ling Xiao muttered to himself as a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. The sword territory and the devouring territory in the void both emitted powerful extreme emperor aura. This was clearly the power left behind by the two devouring emperors. Even though so many years had passed, the power of the extreme Dao still existed. From the heart, Ling Xiao felt an incomparably strong vitality, as well as the origin of the devouring great path. This should be the heart of the devouring emperor. Initially, it should have been destroyed by that peerless sword qi. However, for some unknown reason, it was preserved. Furthermore, it was growing stronger as it continued to devour life force. If this continues, perhaps the devouring emperor will really be reborn? Ling Xiao thought to himself. The life essence in that heart was too majestic. Every time it beat, the surrounding heaven and earth would resonate. It was mysterious and unfathomable. Ling Xiao did not go near it recklessly. If there was still the remnant soul of the devouring emperor within that heart, things would get really interesting. However, at this moment, a black beam of light shot out from the heart. It contained extremely pure power of the soul and was extremely powerful. It immediately shot towards Ling Xiao's forehead. It was an immortal art that attacked the primordial spirit. It contained an aura that could annihilate everything. This attack was powerful enough to kill a high immortal. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He did not expect that the heart would actually attack him. There was indeed something fishy. Perhaps the devouring emperor was still alive. Boom! Ling Xiao's forehead shone brightly. His indestructible primordial spirit was intertwined with 12 types of great Dao origins. It sat cross-legged in the void and exuded an aura that was invincible. When the black beam of light shot over, Ling Xiao's indestructible primordial spirit pointed at it and instantly destroyed the black beam of light. Devouring Emperor, since you're still alive, why don't you show yourself? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed sharply as he stared at the heart and said slowly. However, the heart continued to beat rhythmically, but there was no response. Trying to mystify things. Since you've attacked me, don't blame me for being impolite. Ling Xiao said coldly. Swoosh! A sharp sword light shot out. Ling Xiao held the immortal culling sword in his hand and exuded a vast murderous aura. He then slashed down at the heart. The immortal culling sword shone brightly and expanded violently in the void. In an instant, it turned into a sword aura that was 10,000 feet long. Rumble! The fierce sword domain seemed to be alarmed by the aura of the immortal slaying sword, and instantly became chaotic. Hundreds of millions of streaks of sword qi shot toward the heart from all directions. The sword aura formed by the immortal culling sword was stunning to the extreme. It lit up the void as if it could break through everything. The heart finally moved as if it felt the immense pressure from the immortal culling sword. Boom! The black devouring vortex surged and revealed the devouring great Tao origin. Majestic blood chi rose like a huge wave and instantly shrouded the sword chi that filled the sky. The heart spewed out blazing immortal light like the rising sun and instantly erupted with a force that was like a tsunami. The sword chi that filled the sky shattered and was turned into nothingness by the devouring vortex. A powerful devouring divine light shot up into the sky and collided with the immortal culling sword. In an instant, hundreds of millions of blazing divine lights were released and swept out in all directions like a storm. A member of the God clan? Damn it! Blood chi rose from the heart, and the figure of a middle-aged man in a black robe appeared. He was tall and seemed to be able to support the heaven and earth. He contained endless power and exuded an invincible aura. However, his figure was incomparably illusory, as if it would shatter at any time. His eyes were incomparably cold. At this moment, he looked at Ling Xiao with a trace of intense killing intent. "You are the devouring emperor? There is indeed a remnant soul. Do you want to end it yourself, or do you want me to send you on your way?" Ling Xiao's eyes glinted as he sneered. The devouring emperor was indeed not dead. Or rather, he was not completely dead. The immortal demon grotto had existed for countless years and was known as the place of the Emperor War. No one knew how many eras had passed since then. The devouring emperor should be someone from the ancient times. Moreover, the devouring emperor was a member of the immortal clan. Perhaps it was more appropriate to call him the devouring immortal emperor. During the Emperor War, the devouring immortal emperor was slain by a sword emperor and only his heart was left. No one knew how many years had passed before a remnant soul gradually condensed. However, even if it was a remnant soul, it was still the remnant soul of a great emperor. Although Ling Xiao did not show it on the surface, he was extremely vigilant in his heart. A member of the God clan deserves to die. The remnant soul said coldly. His eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. Chapter 3024. Ling Xiao felt that there was something wrong with the remnant soul. It seemed to have no spiritual intelligence and was repeating the same sentence mechanically. Boom! The remnant soul was like a bolt of lightning, sweeping across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Even though it was only the remnant soul of a great emperor, it still contained an incomparably majestic power. As it rushed towards him, Ling Xiao felt his primordial spirit tremble. "God clan, you deserve to die." The remnant soul repeated the sentence again, and then directly charged towards Ling Xiao's primordial spirit. Monstrous killing intent surged. He actually wanted to possess Ling Xiao. "You're courting death." Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with killing intent, and in an instant, a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Without hesitation, he activated the wordless heavenly book in his primordial spirit. At the same time, the creation jade disc appeared and suppressed the remnant soul. Boom! The moment the remnant soul entered Ling Xiao's primordial spirit, the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc suppressed it at the same time. The remnant soul trembled violently, and a powerful devouring origin erupted, as if it wanted to swallow the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc into its body. However, the wordless heavenly book shone brightly. With the support of the wordless heavenly book, Ling Xiao activated the heaven-devouring secret skill, and the vast heaven-devouring divine world appeared. The heaven-devouring fire merged with the seven-colored celestial lotus fire and instantly enveloped the remnant soul. "Refine!" Ling Xiao shouted, and used the wordless heavenly book and the creation jade disc to suppress the remnant soul. At the same time, he used the heaven-devouring fire to trap the remnant soul, intending to refine it completely. Ling Xiao could feel that although the remnant soul of the devouring immortal emperor was still there, for some reason, it had become like a puppet and had lost its consciousness. Although it still maintained a strong hostility towards the God clan, and even wanted to kill Ling Xiao as soon as it appeared, it was still trapped by Ling Xiao. With 2 chaos treasures, even the remnant soul of the devouring immortal emperor could not escape. God clan, you all deserve to die. The remnant soul struggled violently, and endless flames rose around it. Its face was distorted, and its figure became more and more illusory. Although he still retained a portion of his strength and his enmity towards the Protoss, he was easily trapped by Ling Xiao because he did not have his own consciousness. Under the support of the 2 chaotic treasures, the soul fragment was refined into nothingness very quickly. Only a few fragments of the soul remained, which fused into Ling Xiao's soul. Immortal Emperor Devour was killed by a sword emperor of the divine race. No wonder you have such strong enmity towards the god race. Ling Xiao slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He had obtained part of the remnant soul's memory fragments. He saw that Immortal Emperor Devour had died at the hands of a sword emperor of the celestial race. However, he did not know who the sword emperor was or what had happened to him. Immortal Emperor Devour had died countless years ago. Back then, his heart was torn apart and filled with the sword emperor's sword Dao origin power. However, Immortal Emperor Devour cultivated the devouring Dao. The Dao fruit condensed from this Dao was in his heart. Because the Dao fruit of the devouring Dao did not shatter, it had formed a strange forest of life over the countless years. It could devour endless vitality. Immortal Emperor Devour's heart had gradually recovered over the countless years. Then, his incomplete spirit condensed into a remnant soul. Unfortunately, the remnant soul did not have any consciousness. It was like a puppet. Otherwise, if the remnant soul of a great emperor had its own consciousness, it could cause a lot of trouble for Ling Xiao. Even if he had 2 chaotic treasures, it would still be difficult to deal with it. Rumble. Above the void, endless sword chi rose. The heart trembled. In an instant, the sword chi left marks on it like a spider web. It looked as if it would shatter at any time. Without the remnant soul's control, the heart could not withstand the surrounding sword intent. Oh no! Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. He instantly leaped up and pounced on the heart. At the same time, sword chi rose around him. He summoned the immortal culling sword and slashed at the surrounding sword domain. Ling Xiao knew from the remnant soul's memory fragments that the heart contained the devouring Dao fruit. He was overjoyed. He must obtain the Dao fruit. As long as he obtained the Dao fruit of the devouring Dao, Ling Xiao's heaven-devouring secret skill would be able to advance further, allowing him to directly comprehend the origin of the devouring Dao. The Dao fruit was the most precious treasure left behind by Immortal Emperor Devour. Ling Xiao's figure was like a bolt of lightning, rushing into the heart in an instant. The boundless sword chi around the heart cut a large number of cracks. The majestic vitality in the heart began to dissipate. It was the life origin accumulated by Immortal Emperor Devour's heart for countless years. Ling Xiao felt extremely distressed. However, the most important thing was still the Dao fruit. Ling Xiao had no time to feel distressed about the life origin. He could only use the heaven-devouring secret skill to devour the majestic life origin in the heart while quickly searching for the Dao fruit. It's here! All of a sudden, Ling Xiao's eyes glittered as he caught sight of a black crystal in front of him. It was translucent and mysterious, surrounded by strange vortexes that seemed to be the source of all the life force quintessence. Ling Xiao practically confirmed in an instant that this black crystal was the Devour Dao fruit. Boom! Ling Xiao did not hesitate at all. He instantly used the heaven-devouring secret skill. The vast heaven-devouring sacred domain appeared around him and shrouded the black crystal. There was no repulsion at all. After all, the heaven-devouring secret skill was an origin secret skill that contained the power of the devouring Dao. At this moment, it was extremely easy to merge with the black crystal. Almost instantly, Ling Xiao fell into a state of Dao comprehension. In his sea of consciousness, his primordial spirit bloomed with boundless light. The original 12 types of Dao origin vibrated at this moment. The 13th type of Dao origin gradually condensed. Devouring Dao origin. The aura around Ling Xiao was extremely violent. The heaven-devouring sacred domain erupted with an extremely terrifying devouring power, shrouding all the life origin in the heart. Even the heaven-devouring sacred domain expanded violently, shrouding the endless sword domain outside the heart. There was nothing it could not refine. This was the terrifying part of the devouring Tao. The devouring Tao could refine and devour all the worlds, billions of living beings, and countless treasures. Even other great Tao origins could be devoured. After fusing with the Tao fruit left behind by the devouring immortal emperor, Ling Zhao's heaven-devouring secret skill finally reached perfection and condensed in origin. Ling Zhao sat cross-legged in the void, surrounded by an extremely terrifying devouring vortex. Whether it was the devouring immortal emperor's heart or the sword emperor's boundless sword qi, they were all devoured by him. Even the surrounding void trembled violently. It was as though this ancient space was about to be completely devoured by Ling Zhao. Ling Zhao's aura grew stronger and stronger. The life origin that had been accumulated for countless years after devouring the immortal emperor's heart had all become a part of Ling Zhao's body, causing his cultivation to begin to skyrocket. Chapter 30-25. Outside the relic. Wu Xingchen, the holy son of the true martial immortal sect, returned to the valley. His face was cold and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Following him were 3 young men and women with extraordinary auras. They were the holy son of the Alcade immortal sect, Ren Tianjue, the holy son of the Yin-Yang immortal sect, Dongfang Bai, and the holy son of the Kunlun immortal sect, Xueqing. Wu Xingchen, are you sure this is the place where the devouring immortal emperor died? Ren Tianjue, the holy son of the Alcade immortal sect, looked at the valley and asked doubtfully. Wu Xingchen, although Lei Ling's cultivation is only at the first heaven of the monarch immortal realm, his combat strength is extremely strong. Even your true martial immortal sect was annihilated. We have to be careful. Fang Qingxue looked around warily and said slowly, "What are you afraid of? With the 4 of us here, let alone a mere Lei Ling, we can even fight Tai Yuan from the Tai Yi immortal sect." According to what Wu Xingchen said, Lei Ling must have already entered the historical remains. Should we go in directly and catch a turtle in a jar? Dongfang Bai said with a faint smile. Although he was a man, he was extremely handsome and wore a woman's dress. He spoke coyly and with a shrill voice. It was very awkward to listen to. Ren Tianjue and Fang Qingxue were very calm on the surface, but they quietly distanced themselves from Dongfang Bai. "Brothers, I don't think we should act rashly. If we enter the relic rashly, no one knows what dangers there will be. Most of the inheritance and treasures of the devouring immortal emperor must have fallen into Lei Ling's hands. Why don't we ambush him in this valley and kill him when he comes out?" Wu Xingchen said with a ruthless look in his eyes. His hatred for Ling Zhao had reached its peak. Although the true martial immortal sect was not the strongest among the 9 immortal sects, it could be ranked in the middle. They did not expect Ling Zhao to kill more than a dozen monarch immortal disciples as soon as they entered the immortal demon cave. Now Wu Xingchen was the only one left. Therefore, he was very unwilling to give up. Even though he had escaped, he found 3 experts to help him and wanted to ambush Ling Zhao here. Ambush in this valley? Sure. I have a 4-symbol sky formation here. It's a treasure left behind by an immortal emperor in the antiquity times. However, it requires 4 supreme emperor weapons to suppress it. Once you enter the formation, even an expert at the 5th or 6th heaven of the immortal monarch realm will die. Ren Tianjue's eyes flickered as he sneered coldly. 4 symbols heaven subduing formation? Brother Ren is actually willing to take out such a treasure? Don't worry, Brother Ren. After we kill Lei Ling and obtain his treasures, we will definitely compensate you. Wu Xingchen was overjoyed and quickly said. The 4 of them were saints and saintesses of the immortal sects. This time around, they knew that the immortal demon cave was extremely dangerous. Therefore, they had brought along extreme Dao monarch weapons to protect themselves. However, Wu Xingchen had seen how powerful Ling Zhao was. Even with 3 helpers, he still felt uneasy. But after hearing about the 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram, he no longer had any misgivings. The 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram was famous in the immortal world. It contained a formation world. If an extreme Tao monarch weapon was used to suppress it, it could kill all experts below the Great Emperor realm. However, the 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram in Ren Tianjue's hands was probably incomplete. But it was enough to deal with Lei Ling. Brother Wu, you don't have to be so polite. I will fight Lei Ling to the death. Does this traitor and scum of the immortal tribe really think that he can be arrogant in front of me just because he has joined the deity tribe? Today, I will kill him and get rid of this evil for the immortal tribe. Ren Tianjue sneered coldly. Outside the immortal demon cave, he was defeated by Ling Xiao with a single punch. This was a great humiliation to him. He could only use Ling Xiao's life and blood to wash away this humiliation. Great! With the 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram, Lei Ling will definitely die. Wu Xingchen said confidently. Dong Fangbai and Fang Qingxue naturally had no objections. With the 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram, they were even more confident in this battle. Rumble! Ren Tianjue's palm shone brightly and an ancient diagram appeared. In an instant, it soared into the sky and covered the sky, shrouding the entire valley. The void distorted and overlapped. Billions of starlight gathered as if it was brewing an unparalleled killing intent. Without hesitation, the 4 of them took out their apex emperor weapons and hid them in the 4 symbols heaven subduing diagram. With a flash, the 4 of them completely disappeared without a trace. The valley quickly regained its peace as if nothing had happened. However, no one would have thought that there was a supreme killing formation here, waiting for Ling Xiao to leave the ruins. In the ruins, Ling Xiao had completely refined the devouring Tao fruit. His devouring secret skill had also broken through from the complete realm and condensed the devouring origin, becoming a true origin source secret skill. Currently, Ling Xiao possessed 13 origin source secret skills. Ling Xiao realized that after these origin source secret skills evolved into the Great Tao origin, they became supreme treasure skills like emperor techniques. It was as if they had undergone a sublimation and metamorphosis. Moreover, Ling Xiao could create his own supreme superpower based on these origin source secret skills. Ling Xiao could feel that these 13 origin source secret skills were extremely powerful and could merge with each other. This was the power of the origin source fusion, which could unleash a power that was hundreds or thousands of times stronger. When Ling Xiao was in the mortal realm, he had already begun to experiment with the power of the origin source secret skills. Now, Ling Xiao realized that this was the fusion of the Great Tao and also the resonance of the origin source. Although the devouring secret skill was only the 14th celestial dipper secret skill and was not even in the 12 sky techniques, Ling Xiao realized that the devouring secret skill was the most suitable secret skill for him to complete the origin source fusion. With the devouring Tao fruit, Ling Xiao could use the devouring origin source as the foundation to continuously merge with the 12 great Tao origins. Once the fusion was completed, it would unleash an unparalleled power that could destroy heaven and earth. Rumor has it that the pinnacle of the Tao can be called an emperor. However, a great Tao has an end, while the myriad Taos in the heavens are endless. Perhaps the great Tao fusion is the most suitable path for me. Ling Xiao slowly opened his eyes, revealing a trace of enlightenment. When an Empyrean powerhouse comprehended the Great Tao origin, they could step into the Imperial Emperor realm. And the Imperial Emperor realm's 9 heavens was a process of constantly comprehending the Great Tao, fusing the Great Tao, and using the Great Tao. If a Great Tao could reach the peak and then form one's own Tao, that would be the true Tao validation. Validating the Tao and becoming an emperor. Chapter 3026. Although many imperial emperors spent their lives comprehending the Great Tao of heaven and earth and comprehending the Great Tao origin, it was too difficult for them to reach the peak of a Tao. Many imperial monarchs had merely comprehended a type of grand Tao quintessence because this was their fundamental Tao. There were people like Ling Xiao who comprehended so many great Tao origins in one go. However, in the end, their cultivation did not improve at all and completely stagnated. Ling Xiao could feel that if he maintained the state of 13 great Tao origins, he would not be able to break through to the second heaven of Imperial Emperor realm. Unless he could completely integrate the 13 great Tao origins, he would be able to use the great Tao origins to refine his physical body and form an origin body to break through to the second heaven. Therefore, the devouring heavenly origin was Ling Xiao's greatest opportunity. The devouring immortal emperor's heart has accumulated the devouring life origin for hundreds of millions of years. Now that I have devoured all of it, this energy is enough for me to break through to the second heaven of Imperial Emperor realm. Therefore, what I need to do next in the Immortal Demon Cave is to continuously integrate the great Tao origins. Ling Xiao muttered to himself as a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. His body was filled with boundless life origin. It was the purest energy left behind by the devouring immortal emperor. Now, it was all devoured and refined by Ling Xiao. However, the energy did not become a part of Ling Xiao's cultivation. Instead, it was accumulated in his body, waiting for the day when it would be unleashed. It's a pity that the devouring immortal emperor's extreme Tao Emperor weapon was not left behind. It seems like it was completely destroyed in that battle. Ling Xiao said slowly with a trace of pity in his eyes. He could feel that the devouring immortal emperor was extremely powerful. Moreover, from the devouring Tao fruit, he could see that the devouring immortal emperor might have walked on the second great Tao. An ordinary great emperor could not be compared to him. The devouring immortal emperor's extreme Tao emperor weapon must be extremely powerful. Perhaps there was more than one extreme Tao emperor weapon. However, Ling Xiao did not discover anything in this ruin. It's time to leave, Ling Xiao muttered to himself. Being able to obtain the devouring Tao fruit was already his greatest gain. Before Ling Xiao left the ruin, his gaze fell on the stone tablet. The words, "Devouring Emperor," on the stone tablet still emitted a monstrous sword intent. With a thought, Ling Xiao put away the stone steel as well. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. After putting away the stone tablet, the space of the ruins was empty and there was nothing left. Moreover, without the support of the Sword Realm and the Devouring Realm, the space would collapse soon. At that time, both Sword Emperor and Immortal Emperor Devour's last trace in this world would be completely erased. Ling Xiao sighed in his heart. Even if one was an Emperor Realm expert, no matter how peerless and invincible he would still be buried by time. Even the great emperors couldn't afford to be immature. The path to immortality was long and difficult. I still have a long way to go, Ling Xiao muttered to himself before taking a step forward and leaving the ruins. Outside, it was still the same valley. Nothing had changed. The forest of life was still lush and full of vitality. Even the strange devouring power was still there. "Who are you? Come out." A light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes as he said indifferently. Although the valley looked very real and even simulated everything that had happened before Ling Xiao entered the ruin, the people who were lying in ambush outside had no idea what had happened inside the ruin. They also did not know that the devouring Tao fruit had been refined by Ling Xiao. Logically speaking, the forest of life outside should not have such rich vitality. Even the strange devouring power should have disappeared long ago. However, the scene in front of them was very abnormal. Rumble. As soon as the sound of Ling Xiao's voice faded, the surrounding space started to twist and distort. Blazing light soared up, and celestial light lingered around. It was as if numerous resplendent stars were converging. Heaven and earth turned upside down, and a peerless killing intent was brewing. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The four-symbol sky formation instantly revealed its true appearance. Wu Xingchen and the other three appeared in the void and were surrounded by bright starlight. Their faces were cold and their eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. "Lei Ling, you are very perceptive. However, you will definitely die today." Wu Xingchen sneered. What? The roar of a dragon and a tiger shook the sky. Above the four of them, endless starlight gathered. It was dazzling and instantly formed the shadows of 4 ancient sacred beasts: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. They were very different from the 5 sacred beasts of the demon world. These were creatures that had once appeared in the immortal world. They were extremely ancient and contained unparalleled power. At this moment, under the support of the 4 symbols sky formation, the shadows of the 4 sacred beasts were formed. They almost merged with Wu Xingchen and the other 3, causing their aura to skyrocket. Wu Xingchen, Ren Tianjue, Dong Fang Bai, and Fang Qingxue? The saints and saintesses of the 4 major immortal sects are all here. You guys have really put in a lot of effort to deal with me. However, it's good that I don't have to kill you one by one. Today you will die. Ling Xiao said coldly. Being in the 4 symbols sky formation, he did not seem to care at all. His eyes were filled with strong fighting spirit and confidence. It was as if the 4 people in front of him were already in his bag. Arrogant. You're courting death. Kill him, and the inheritance of immortal Emperor Devourer will be ours. You still dare to speak so arrogantly when you're about to die? Kill. Wu Xingchen, Ren Tianjue, and the others yelled coldly. The murderous intent in their eyes was so strong that it almost materialized. Bang! Terrifying auras rose from their bodies, and in an instant, they exploded with powerful energy and charged toward Ling Xiao. The 4 of them were the peerless geniuses of their respective immortal sects. They had all cultivated the supreme immortal arts of their respective immortal sects. They did not hold back at all as they unleashed their strongest attacks. True Martial Emperor Fist. Zhou Tian's Starfall Immortal Art. Yin-Yang Millstone. Infinite Destructive Immortal Light. The 4 supreme immortal arts burst out at the same time. Like 4 brilliant immortal light torrents, they pressed down on Ling Xiao. The power was so strong that it seemed like it could destroy everything. Good timing. Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. His blood and qi surged like a vast ocean. Blazing divine light burst out and turned into a peerless fist seal that swept across the sky. It was the pure strength of his flesh. Ling Xiao unleashed all the strength of his physical body, wantonly and unhindered, causing this punch to be extremely domineering. Before the fist arrived, the fist intent had already filled the entire sky. It was as if an ancient ancestor god had appeared. He was billions of zhang tall. Every move he made was enough to destroy the stars and suppress the universe. He was unbeatable. Wu Xingchen and the others felt a terrifying aura surging toward them. Even their primordial spirits were trembling vigorously. P.S. I caught a cold yesterday and had a terrible headache, so I can't update. I'll make up for it first. There are 2 more chapters tonight. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.